I'm working 16 hours a day. That's getting me to that top percentile income, but I don't have the time to offer up those first experiences to girls. How do you kind of deal with that?
You're 19, bro. You got the whole world ahead of you. For you to try to take a girl seriously now at this point, she's only going to hold you back. You should just continue to keep killing it like you are. I think young men should never be under the pressure to find a serious relationship like women are. I think our sexual market value has a far longer shelf life than women do. So I think it's her job to try to find a guy when she's 19 and at her peak of sexual market value. But for you, bro, you're going to just keep going up and up. I would say stay away from any type of serious relationship now, especially since you're famous. So I think keep doing what you're doing, man, and keep killing it. I don't think any guy, especially 19 years old, should be focusing on these 304s.
Good to talk to you. Thanks for coming on the stream.
Yeah.
Obviously, we had a phenomenal show, I thought, before. You know, I don't know how the numbers were, but I guess they were, some of the best, right?
We had like 30,000 watching between us and you. I think we had 30 to 40,000 watching.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, watching live, like real-time live. And then obviously, with all the clips and everything else like that, it went pretty viral. So it was a good show, man. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun, man. That was definitely a unique experience. To be able to do that like in an in-person setting, kind of put stupid chicks like that in their place. So I appreciate the invite.
Yep.
But obviously when there's that level of stupidity in the room, two reasonably minded men are gonna agree on everything and go against them. But today I figure maybe we should look at our points of contention, which really we don't have too many, but we certainly have maybe you favor more towards looks or towards status and money, rather than me, who might say that looks is a more important metric in terms of importance and actual realistic ways to improve upon these things. So let's kind of go through that a little bit and see where we agree, say where maybe we differ. And, what's actually a good solution? How can men actually survive in this society? Because it is, crazy times. I've never seen anything like the society we live in. Looking at, sociology for the past, 200 years or whatever. This is insane. The hypergamy and, specifically the female delusion calculator. Dude, like when we put that in and then we weigh up like the actual looks percentile or just percentile overall of all these women, the disparity is so large. So, what do you think about that? Like how can men actually close this gap?
Well, I think guys need to understand the reason why women are so hypergamous nowadays is because they can be, right? With the explosion of social media, internet, we're more interconnected now than ever before. And what that's allowed is it's allowed the ugly side of hypergamy to rear its face, which is basically women have this perpetual mindset that the grass is greener on the other side. And, they'll be with the guy that they're with, right? He fulfills a lot of their wants and requirements, but they'll look at something on Instagram or on TikTok and they'll see another girl getting more or another guy that's offering a better opportunity, a better experience. And what ends up happening is women, if they feel like they can do better, they will, right? And the issue here is that a lot of women have a problem with discerning men that actually want to really court them and date them and take them seriously versus men that are simply giving them attention with the goal of getting sex. Women are terrible at discerning the difference between these two things because to them, a lot of girls want attention by any means necessary, whether it's good attention, where a guy actually wants to take her seriously in quarter, or even bad attention, where the guy just wants her for sexual access. So the reason why women are so insufferable nowadays is because simply they can be, and with very little repercussion. And there's not many people on the internet, right? I know we talk about this stuff and other people in the Redpill sphere, but the reality is we are a minority compared to all the other idiots out there that push out propaganda that makes women feel better about themselves. And guys like us get suppressed, right? You got banned on YouTube yesterday. I've been demonetized on YouTube. I've been banned off TikTok, banned off Twitch, etc. So putting out these ideas is very taboo and it's censored. So what do women see most of the time? They see you did nothing wrong. You're beautiful no matter what. No matter how insufferable, rude you are, you're still a queen. And this is what's led to this extremely entitled mindset that many modern women have. So this is what men have to combat when they enter the dating marketplace and dealing with modern women. These women are not the women that, we have as our mothers, our grandmothers that actually respected masculinity and leadership. These are women that, number one, they think that they're better than you. Number two, they have ridiculously high standards. And then on top of that, the hoeflation is outrageous because they don't necessarily qualify for the features that they want in the guy. They want a dude that makes a bunch of money, is attractive, etc. But they're stupid. So this is where we are in the sexual marketplace now. And I think guys need to understand this and go in with their eyes wide open and be extremely selective on which girls you're going to bring into your life from a serious romantic standpoint.
Yeah. So it seems like we both see the board perfectly well. You know, we know exactly what the problem is here. So there's no disagreement there whatsoever. It's simply the hypergamy of the society. But it's literally just, you know, what can be done about this? Because we're both very logical people. You know what I mean? So you obviously have great positions a lot of the time. And I think we agree on probably 99% of issues. But maybe the solution might differ a little bit. So in terms of logical thinking, we don't really complain, the two of us. I haven't really seen. We just kind of look at where things are. I don't want people to sit here and think we're complaining about shit. We're just you know, analyzing where we're at so that we can actually come up with a solution.
Well, you have to identify the problem. That's step one. And most guys can't even identify the problem, which is why they're so frustrated. They can't get dates. Girls treat them like shit. They're they're extremely angry. You know, I think a big reason why so many guys get frustrated with women, it's because they don't understand. Once you understand how women really think and how they behave, you can't really be mad at them for what they'll never be to you, which is what a lot of guys want, is an idealistic lover. Women are not idealistic lovers. They're opportunistic lovers. What guy can give me the best lifestyle, security, status, good looking, etc. So once guys wake up and realize that women are not idealistic lovers like we are, it makes everything else easier to deal with, understand, and honestly, you're able to navigate the marketplace from a more educated perspective versus being angry at women all the time.
Right. No, of course. So, you know, we both see this well. But in terms of our, you know, logical pursuit, you know, you have come to the conclusion that maybe as a man, to make yourself that high value thing that's actually being, you know, valued by women and actually being sought after, you look at it from, hey, how can I improve the amount of money I'm making and improve that percentile? How can I get more status? This is the solution. This is how I fix myself. So I'm actually, you know, the prize in the hypergamous society. Whereas I'm simply saying it's more realistic for most people to overcome the disparity in terms of looksmaxxing rather than the first option. And, you know, the thing that I want to, you know, of note that I want to say is a lot of people who have really made it as social media or, you know, political, whatever ways that people have, you know, ascribed their status or acquired their status rather, you know, they get to such a crazy, ridiculous percentile, you know, 99.99999, that they're sitting here thinking, oh, wow, I have all this money, I have all this status, I'm really not that good looking. But when we're talking about a society, right, what's accomplished by those people like Andrew Tate, who maybe isn't the best looking person, but is able to get the hottest of the hot women, that's someone who's making like, you know, I think he's close to a billionaire. So that's not realistic to recommend most people do. Whereas going from a 4 to a 6 through looksmaxxing and, you know, getting to like 10 to 12% body fat, that's super realistic. So how do you exactly like, you know, kind of justify that, you know, gap is what I would ask you.
Okay. So justifying the gap from a looks perspective, a financial perspective, a status perspective, specifically, which
just one? In terms of like what's realistic for people. Okay. Because even making $1 million a year, being a millionaire, that's really not as crazy as people think. Like that's not going to allow you to overcome like serious looks issues, you know?
Yeah.
So, and that's a crazy number to hit, right? 7 figures a year. I'm pretty sure that's like less than 0.5% of the United States. So when that number is in mind, and that's really not going to get you that far, it doesn't seem realistic to me to recommend people just money max as their way of pulling themselves out of the hole.
Yeah. So so my position on this is I'm actually very big on guys improving their looks. You know, I'm not one of these like dating coaches that's like, oh yeah, bro, it's all game. No, man, that's bullshit. Because the problem is, no matter how charming you are, how you know, how funny you are, how interesting you are, if you're ugly, girls aren't even going to give you a chance. So you need to get to a level where women aren't going to reject you outright because of the way that you look, where you can't even display your game. Like these, you know, game only guys, you know, they're bullshitting with that. Now, when it comes to money and status, this is how I look at it, right? So every woman is different based on where she is in life. Typically, the older she is, the more status and resources matter. The younger and hotter she is, the more she cares about emotional stimuli and the way that the guy looks, right? So what I tell guys is you need to have everything. Have your money on point, go to the gym, looks max, especially if you're under 6 foot tall. If you're under 6 foot tall, you must look max. There's no way around it. You need to get in the gym, need to get lean, need to be muscular, because that's going to compensate for the lack thereof that you're not over 6 feet tall. Like dating apps, for example, like Bumble and Tinder, etc. Women already get rid of like 90% of the guys off of their height parameters alone. So this is what a lot of guys that are under 6 feet are dealing with, where you guys are invisible to these women. So you need to overcome that with proper grooming, dressing well. I'm not saying you have to wear designer or whatever, but you need to wear things that look good and fit on you and accentuate your shape. What shape is that? You need to be in the gym. Obviously, a wide shoulder to waist ratio. 1.6 tends to be the ideal, right? So with guys, it's a combination, and this is why I say guys need to have all of it. Now, when it comes to the money and status, whatever, I tell guys to have a couple things in place, 5 things in place before they even think about getting married. Number 1, I want you to be a 6-figure earner. Number 2, I want you to have 6 months to 1 year of savings. Number 3, I want you to be in shape, right? No one cares and gives a about fat people. Number 4, have had sex with 50 women, right? And then be 35 years old. Now, the body count, I get a lot of people that hate on me from the religious side of the internet, because they're like, oh, well, that's promoting degeneracy, etc. When I say have sex with 50 women, it's not a hard, fast 50. It's not like you got to have 50, or if you're at 35, you tell her, sorry, babe, can't get married, can't have a serious relationship because I'm not at my number. The reason why I prescribe that number generally is because I know once a guy has had sex with a certain amount of women, women can no longer play the game where they're leveraging sex against you for compliance, because that's what women do. It's you need to do X, Y, Z in order to get sexual access to me. And what ends up happening for a lot of guys is to get that sexual access, they'll compromise their values, they'll start sipping, they'll think that the girl is better than them, and they start naturally pedestalizing her. And when you pedestalize women, they become terrible people. Women are horrible people when they have the leverage. And I don't want guys acting like Simpson idiots in order to get sexual access. And the way to kind of override that is by having sexual experience, so that pussy's not like a foreign concept to you where she can bully you and gain resources and leverage over you through sexuality. That's why I tell guys to have these things. Now, that's why I think it's so important to be to have so many different things checked out. Do you need to be a millionaire? No, of course not. But you definitely want to be a 6-figure earner and a higher earner so that you're appealable to a larger demographic of women, because unfortunately, a lot of women do have standards when it comes to financial and status level. And I'll finish on this. Let's say you're a good-looking guy, but you don't have your money together. What'll end up happening is you'll get a lot of casual sex. Women will hook up with you on one-night stands, etc. But it's going to be very difficult for you to retain women, right? A rich dude or a rich simp or some sugar daddy will take the girl from you to some degree. But if you only have money and you're ugly and you're a loser and you have no game, what ends up happening is Chad will take your girl for the night. You might be able to retain her with this like transactional type relationship, but she's not going to respect you. She's going to talk back to you. She's not going to go back to the kitchen. She's not going to do certain things. This is why it's so important to have everything so that you could be a complete package. Because if you're missing one thing, what ends up happening is you're going to get burned for it later.
Yeah. Okay. So I like that you make that recommendation to all men about the full package or whatever. And, you caught me a little off guard with that thing about, the 50 bodies or whatever until your reasoning. So I like what you said about, people not putting women on a pedestal anymore. And the 50 body thing obviously isn't realistic for most people.
Yeah.
But it does kind of ensure that outcome that no one's going to pedestalize the women. And unfortunately, it's almost impossible for dudes to not do that. Mm-hmm. You can't just tell them, oh, don't pedestalize. It's going to happen anyway. Yep. So that 50 bodies thing is, legit. But, for 99% of people, that's not ever happening. Right?
Yeah, and a lot of guys, are shocked when I say that number. But the reason why I give that number is because I just don't want guys to be controlled by women. Because most girls are going to come in and like boss you around. Oh, you're not getting any nookie unless you take the trash out. Well, we don't want guys to be in a position where girls are able to boss them around to get some ass. Like if your girl's starting to like withhold sex from you for leverage and compliance, dude, you need to get rid of her. Like a woman's main agency is her sexuality. These provide very little value outside of sexuality. That's why I tell guys never be friends with girls. Don't let her friends own you because you're disrespecting yourself by doing it. And if your girl ever decides to withhold sex from you or whatever, you need to let her know that she's going to get kicked out the door. And that's the only way women actually respect you is when they know that you have sexual access to other women. This is why social proof is so important. This is why even an ugly guy that has girls around him has a good amount of access, because women only respect men that have other women. Like that's just how it is, unfortunately, with them. Women are not capable of making their own independent decisions. They need the collective. They need other people to verify your status or verify where you are. This is a big reason, actually, why Jeffrey Epstein, for those of you that that was compromising all these politicians and powerful people. One of the things that he did was Ghislaine Maxwell would be going to the UN talking about the environment, all this other stuff, right? And she'd deal with all these like very high level politicians. Then they'd have parties. Guess who brought all the girls? It was Jeffrey Epstein. He would bring all the girls who were of age, right, at these parties, right? Because he would get them from a guy named Jean Brunel, because he worked for Victoria's Secret. He had all these models. They'd go to these parties, have all these beautiful women. Guys want to get to know, who is this guy, Jeffrey Epstein? He has all these Victoria's Secret models there because the guy that backed him, Les Wexner, was the owner of Victoria's Secret, and Brunel worked for him getting the models. So they bring these girls. So he's there with Ghislaine Maxwell, and he has a bunch of models there. People are going to want to know who he is. Oh, come to my ranch in New Mexico. Oh, come to meet me in West Palm Beach. Oh, come to my house in France, in New York City. So he has, the social proof with the women there, the location proof. And then when they do show up, there's 15-year-olds there. Now they're compromised. So that's an example of like how powerful social proof is when you have other women with you, where you can get these diplomats and powerful people to show up at your house. Next thing you know, there's underage girls there and they're compromised. That's a big part of the game that he had.
Right, absolutely. So on the LMS triad, looks, money, status, how do you rank those? In terms of importance to,
Good question.
Or let me
sure,
specify the question a little bit more. On the LMS triad, where do you rank them in terms of importance and, what people should actually work to, improve first?
Sure. So every woman is different. Some women might prioritize looks and then money behind that. Some girls prioritize status, then money behind that, or some girls go status, then looks after that. I would say to have the best bang for your buck, right? Status is number one, because with status, you're able to transcend barriers. Your reputation precedes you. People know who you are. So as a guy that has status, which typically money's right behind that, you'll be able to unlock certain doors and you have like wide reach, right? And then after that, I would say like money's like kind of a close second because it's very difficult to have status without having the money. It kind of comes together.
Right.
And then looks absolutely play a role like right behind that, because what I will say is this: you can overcome being not the most attractive guy if you have money and status, right? We know a lot of ugly dudes that get chicks. I mean, look at some of these streamers that that are losers, fat, no real maturity, whatever, but they're still getting girls. Why? Because they're famous. But then with that said, there's other guys also that are very good looking, chads, that are able to close. But I would say on the grand scheme of things, like overall, if you wanted to be the most attractive to the most women, status is by far, I would say the number one thing. But everything else is closely behind.
No, but like specifically, what do you think is most realistic for people to actually, get to that level where it's something that you could leverage in order to get women?
Oh, what's the easiest? Okay, so your looks is in your control.
The most realistic.
Yeah, so looks is in your control.
So we agree on that for sure. That's obviously true, and I'm glad you are on the same boat with that.
Yeah, that's you really number one, because that's like in your control. Like no guy should be fat. Every guy should be taking skincare. Grooming themselves, dressing well with fitted clothing. That's 100% in your control.
Okay, and I'm going to ask you one more question, just so I could kind of get to know where you are and see where we might disagree. What does your ideal society look like? Not, what would you do to get there, or, what political bills need to be passed, just in terms of like the dating market. Like what would you say would be ideal? Like, people getting married, like monogamous relationships, or, what does that kind of look like? Can you lay that out?
Yeah. I mean, I think ideal is, lots of nuclear families. I think the nuclear family is the backbone to any society. I talk about this quite a bit, on my show, and why I'm so against feminism, because I think feminism was the death blow to the nuclear family. But realistically speaking, like that's the ideal, right? Nuclear families, women that are at a certain sexual market value getting with men that are at a comparable sexual market value. But I'll be 100% honest with you, that's never going to happen. And the reason why is because women have far too much latitude in the sexual marketplace nowadays. They make their own money. They have their own status. They have their own careers. So whenever women increase their own social status, they look for a partner that's either at the same social status or higher. So I don't predict that women are going to concede any of the territory they've taken, or they're not going to concede any of the space that they've taken through feminism. They fought 60 to 70 years to leave the kitchen, and they're here now. I would argue women have more rights and privileges than men do. And I just don't foresee them walking that back. So I think what's going to end up happening is the sexual marketplace, there's going to be more disparity between men and women. So in other words, a minority of the men are going to have the majority of the women. And I think that minority of men is going to dwindle more and more. 10 years ago, I would have said maybe 20% of the men were having sex with 80% of the women. I would argue now it's probably between 10 to even single digits of that small percentage of men having sex with a majority of the women.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And my prediction that I've always, said on my show has been that there's going to be a huge, amount of jealousy from the people who are outside of that small percentage of men who, and this could eventually, it's not there quite yet because people don't know. I think they're kind of starting to with, shows like yours, maybe people like me talking about it, but there's eventually going to be so much resentment that it's going to get to a point of violence, whether that be towards women or towards that, small percentage of men who are dominating in terms of the sexual market. I can't exactly say, where the resentment is going to fall, but I think that there's going to be an increase in the violent incel, attacks and things of this nature, as unfortunate as that is. But things are getting so bad, things are getting so that I really hope we don't go that direction. Do you foresee anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, you're 100% right, and I'll tell you why. If you look at the Middle East, right, these places that openly practice polygamy, a lot of the times young guys tend to be violent, do a whole bunch of bullshit, commit acts of violence, terrorism, whatever it may be. I'm not going to sit here and say that it's attributed only to the fact that it's a polygamous society, but there's been studies that show that polygamous societies tend to be less stable than monogamous-led societies, right, of the West, where, Christianity tends to be the prevailing religion. So, I think, there's nothing more dangerous than a guy that has no family, is angry, and doesn't have sexual access. That creates quite a bit of frustration, quite a bit of pent-up anger. And
incel rage,
and it definitely creates a lot of problems. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely foreseeable.
Yeah, I mean, quite honestly. And, the thing that I'll say is, going back to women and where they are, people created a society, whether it's the men who are dating down or it's the women, that it makes it so easy and so much more fun for people to take advantage of their place, whether you're the man who's, being able to slay all these women or the women who are having access to men outside of their, percentile range, that they're going to take advantage of it. So I don't think people should really necessarily resent women for taking advantage of the society that they were born into. So I don't think that any violence or any, sort of resentment has any place in this world. Do you think people should really resent women for kind of taking advantage of their place?
Yeah. So I have a saying. I say you can either understand women or you can respect them, but you can't do both. And once you understand them, you just can't respect them as equals. And if you can't respect them as equals, you shouldn't be getting mad at them because they're slaves to their biology even more so than we are. Like people need to the young guys need to understand that this whole concept of, women being able to make their own decisions with when it comes to sexuality and getting a partner, all this other stuff. This is relatively new stuff. And since the beginning of time, women have always needed men for protection, for, resources, etc. So women pick the best guy that they can because it's a part of their hypergamy. And the other thing guys need to know is no matter how much money a woman has, no matter how successful she is, how much resources she has, she's still going to want a guy that has more than her, even when she has adequate enough for herself and a partner. And the reason for that is because women don't provide security to men. That's why I tell guys, who gives a fuck about these educated girls? Get a girl that's going to respect you. That's more important than getting with a girl that's educated and has money and all this other stuff, because she's going to be a pain in the ass later on. And she's going to have high standards. So I think with guys, don't resent women for what they're never going to be to you, which is, like I said before at the top of the show, women are not idealistic lovers like we are. If we like a girl, we like that girl. It doesn't matter if she loses her job. It doesn't matter if she gains a little bit of weight or whatever. A lot of times guys are going to stick it out with a woman. Women, however, are not idealistic lovers to us. They're opportunistic lovers. So as soon as you are no longer the man that she fell in love with, she's going to start to resent you. She's not going to want to be with you, and she'll look for a guy that used to be what you used to be, if that makes sense. So I think guys just need to understand this, accept it, and navigate in this new normal. But the thing that gets guys pissed off is they think that women are idealistic lovers. That's the biggest frustrating thing for young men.
Yeah. I want to go back to the thing about, your recommendation of men having sex with 50 women before they get married. What I want to say is men dating down is definitely a huge problem as well, because there's no way people are going to be able to find 50 sexual partners who are like actually attractive women who are, you know, not complete pieces of shit to be around.
Yeah.
There's just no way that's happening. And I think it's creating a huge problem when people are slaying like 3 out of 10s just for the f of it. So I don't entirely recommend, agree with your recommendation, besides the fact that it's going to help you as an individual in terms of not pedestalizing the women. But for the rest of the society, that's doing a huge injustice for people to do. And I think that's a lot of reason why people gravitate towards me is there's a lot of viral clips of me rejecting women who are super far below my looks level. People are saying, oh, bro's restoring, the balance in society in the comments and shit like that. So how do you feel about that? Do you agree that it's, probably the worst thing for the society?
For guys to get out there and get experience?
Not necessarily experience, but it's to get 50 bodies. There's no way that most people are slaying, 50, 10 out of 10s. A lot of the time they're going super far below, like dating, 4 out of 10s, or not dating, but having sex with 4 or 5 out of 10s. Mm-hmm. That's happening all the time.
Oh yeah. I mean, well, the reality is that most guys are going to be average to below average. Women literally I wrote about this in my book. Like women literally look at like 90%, 95% of men as unattractive, right? Like most guys simply don't meet their looks requirement. And it's funny because, women will sit there and say that men are shallow, but I would argue women are far more shallow when it comes to men, because the metric of what women find attractive is far narrower than what we find attractive, right? Mm-hmm. And it's actually a lot harder for men to attain the look standard that a lot of women actually want. Now, they obviously don't talk about this for obvious reasons because they don't want to be looked at the shallow ones, etc. But when you actually look at what women respond to favorably from a sexually arousing perspective, it's a lot narrower than people think, right? The shoulder width ratio that we talked about, the jawline, face symmetry, all the muscular development, etc. Now, right. When it comes to what you're saying as far as like, would that be destructive to society for guys to have these partners?
Yeah.
So
to date down specifically, because, yeah. I don't know if you agree, but I wouldn't say that all experience is good experience necessarily. Sure. And I think that even if you're understanding like the psychology of women, the more sexual partners you take on, being able to secure a woman who's that far beneath you, the power dynamics at play are not going to be realistic with any woman of quality that you actually want in a wife that you're going to be with long term.
Yeah, I mean,
it's just like it's playing COD on like recruit mode, and you're a professional Call of Duty player.
Fair. Let's use the Call of Duty analogy, right? Well, you play in recruit mode, you figure out how to use a scope, you figure out how to, take cover, you figure out, positions of power on the map, taking a high ground, etc. This is what you're going to learn when you deal with women that might be lower than you on the sexual totem pole, right? And that allows you to build up the skill set and the experience to play at the normal level or the expert level. And the problem is that a lot of guys need to almost play like a World of Warcraft thing where they're slaying the runts, right? Getting their level up, figuring out, okay, this is how women move, this is how they behave, etc. And then when they do eventually get to that position where they're dealing with a more attractive girl or a girl that might be on their level or maybe even higher in the sexual market status, they're able to navigate that appropriately and not making mistakes. Because this is what I will say about hotter girls, and you could probably speak to this. You have less of a degree of latitude to make mistakes with attractive women than you do with uglier women. So
of course,
when you make a mistake with a hot girl, that mistake is going to be far more pronounced than when you're with an ugly girl, right? You can get away with certain things when you're dealing with women that aren't as attractive, but as you deal with more attractive and more attractive women that have more and more options, you're magnified. So I think it's better to get that experience. Maybe we're not the most attractive girls, work your way up and then level up. And then obviously you can adjust and, get higher sexual market value women as a byproduct of that. But most guys out the gate are not going to know how to deal with very attractive women. And let's be honest, I've always said it. I think women that are 8s, 9s, and 10s are useless. And the reason why is because they've typically never had to be useful. The most attractive women out there have had everything given to them, are extremely entitled, extremely rude, extremely crass, extremely stupid, don't add value. And unless you came from a strong father or, had a brother in her life or something like that, they're not really going to be good long-term partners. I actually tell guys, it's better for you, for most of you, to get with a girl that's in the 5, 6, 7 range as a long-term partner because they don't have a lot of these bad habits that hot girls tend to have. Now, obviously, every guy is different of what they can handle and what they cannot handle. But for most guys, they're going to probably be in that range somewhere of wifing up a girl at this level, since a lot of guys might not necessarily have the skill set to deal with these more attractive females.
I don't necessarily agree that I would, obviously there's more positive reinforcement there for the girls who are the top percentile looks, but I wouldn't say that they're, unmoldable if they're gotten to before they've racked up a high body count, before they surpass the age of like 21. I would say you'd be perfectly fine there. So I don't, there's a little bit of contention in my opinion. Your game would certainly have to be a little bit higher. You'd have to have a better propensity for, rooting out bullshit. But I wouldn't call them exactly useless. I would say that they're kind of not going to be far off because all women have positive reinforcement. The society was basically designed around women and their hypergamy and their bullshit. So I wouldn't really say there's a huge gap between a 6 and an 8 in terms of their usefulness or their candidacy for your long-term wife.
I think I would say the most attractive women, right? Like 8s, 9s, and 10s. Does that mean every single one of them is useless? No, but a lot of them are. And a lot of them are very vain. Every time they walk by a mirror, they got to look at themselves. They take hours to get ready. They're pompous, they're cocky, they're arrogant. They, because they've dated, higher status men before, they've probably been able to turn a profit from the way that they look. Now, is this every single girl that's 8, 9, or 10? Of course not. But I would say the majority of them absolutely are useless.
But what I'm simply stating is that, that kind of extends to that, definition you just gave, how they probably have gotten with, super rich, high status men before. That's also going to be true for women who are, average. Or we saw the girls on even that one panel we did. Those girls were hideous, and some of them had profitable OnlyFans. Like the one girl, that I brought, I'm pretty sure she's making like millions of dollars a year, per year. And the girl objectively is not much more.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. Like they get access no matter what.
So yeah, it doesn't really matter. You might as going for a 6 or going for an 8. It really is the same thing at the end of the day. So I don't really agree with you at all there.
Here's the thing. I agree with you that women that are attractive, whether 5, 6, 7, 8, are going to have access to higher status men no matter what, because men are totally willing to date down. But I would argue that the girls at the highest levels, it's different because now they're getting employment based off the way that they look. Now they're getting money just for existing. Now they're, some of these girls might have access to some of these celebrities. They might get flown out here. Maybe they might get invited to a party here, whatever. But the most attractive of women, these are girls that are talking to like, sheikhs. These are girls that are like talking to royalty. These are girls that are like literally that are like have some simp sugar daddy paying for their apartment in 3 different cities. Like they just have more access. I'm not saying that women that are 6s and 7s don't have access, but I'm saying like the 8s, 9s, and 10s have the access, and they have it in abundance, which is why they behave the way that they do. They have more opportunities with these individuals. Not saying that the 6s and 7s don't, but these more attractive women, they have it in far more abundance.
Well, it certainly might not be, royalty in Saudi Arabia paying for their apartment for the 6s and 7s. It's certainly going to be like a millionaire, and that's kind of like going to have the same results. So there's really, you'd almost have to go down to like really like below average women to not get that treatment with how bad things are and with how hypergamy kind of operates. Yeah. So I don't really think that that's something that should be of concern to people. It's kind of just a problem that's kind of prevalent across the board. It's not really something that you could kind of avoid by just not going for like the most perfect of perfect women. I think the actual solution to that isn't going for 6s or 7s. It's more so going for women who are still youthful between the ages of 18 and 21, because a lot of the times, even like the hottest girls are not going to be exposed to that since they simply haven't moved to the big cities yet. That's
one way to circumvent the problem. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Getting with a girl that has experience.
Really the only one.
Yeah, only way. But like if you're dealing with a girl that's like, let's say 27, 28, right? That's like an 8 or whatever, right? Like an 8, 9, or 10 versus a girl that's like same age group, but that's like a 6 or a 7. Those 8, 9s, and 10s are going to have way more experiences, with these higher status guys than the girl that's like the 6, 7. Like the girls at the 6 and 7 still have access, but they don't have the same level and abundance of access as these other girls. Now, what you mentioned, getting with a girl that's younger, that's one way to circumvent and get around that problem of us having this interconnected social media world, which, I tell guys all the time too. A girl's prime is somewhere between 18 and 24. So if you can find a girl like that before she's corrupted, comes from a strong family, has a good dad, has a good brother, has very strong masculine influence in her life where they respect masculinity, that's one of the ways to circumvent it. But for me, I just got to keep it real with guys and let them know, like, hey, look, in the West, especially America, a lot of these women don't have fathers. A lot of the times they don't have positive masculinity, and this is what you're going to run into. But if you can find that gem in 18, 19, 20-year-old that isn't a 304, that has a strong dad, yeah, that's obviously the ideal.
Well, and I would even go as far as to say, because you just said if you're talking to a 27-year-old, whatever, I would say that women above the ages of really like 22 are utterly useless. And I'll give the reason why. Is even if she has zero body count, virgin, not promiscuous at all, she still had the opportunity to do all those things. She still had all the richest of the rich guys hitting on her. So, having been exposed to that and having had that opportunity, now you come along, and even though her pair bonding abilities and her oxytocin release, all her brain chemistry is still perfectly fine, she's going to know deep down, I could have this. Why am I going to, go with this guy if this guy is an option? So it really doesn't matter. Once that gets known by a woman, it's pretty much over. So really, like anything above the age of 22, no matter what the body count, no matter how non-promiscuous she is, it's over. She's essentially useless in my opinion. So I don't know how you feel about that.
Well, my thing is I look at it like the more experience a woman has, the worse it is for you as the man. Like, it's your job to kind of give her a lot of her first experiences, right? If she's never traveled out of the country before, you want to be the guy to do that. If she's never been to a certain location, you want to be the guy to do that. You want to be the guy that's giving her most, all, if not at least the majority of her firsts. Because I do agree with you that the more experience a woman has, the worse it is for you, because what ends up happening is, and the reason for this, right? Because I know some people want to say, oh my God, this is misogynistic. Let's talk about this. Women are like clay, right? Once, you start to mold it in a certain way, right? And it ages, what ends up happening is it starts to harden. And it's very difficult for you to warm the clay back up and make it malleable to what you want. So a lot of the times when you're dealing with a girl and she has bad habits or she's done stupid shit, you can rest assured 9 out of 10 times, these bad habits arose from either A, bad parenting, or B, a boyfriend before her that didn't hold her accountable, she didn't have a strong masculine figure in her life. So what ends up happening a lot of the times is the older a woman is, the more experience she has, the more problems it's going to create for you as the guy, because you're going to have to kind of come in and fix some of these problems, assuming she even wants to change. And this is a big thing with women in their 30s. When I deal with them, I've noticed, or, in their late 20s, is they typically tend to have their routines, they have their worldviews, and they don't want to change a lot of the times. And it's a pain in the ass. So dealing with younger women, you're able to kind of avoid these headaches because women typically tend to reflect the strongest male in their life, or if not the strongest male, worse yet, the strongest women in their life, which that's another inherent issue, because then they tend to not respect masculine men. They tend not to respect authority, the patriarchy, all these different things. So yes, with age comes experience, and with experience can come the potential of extremely bad habits, which, permeate throughout the sexual marketplace with women above, 25 to 30.
Yeah. And I just want to make the quick clarification, guys. I am only 19 when we were talking about this. And I found it like such a weird thing that all I was saying pretty much throughout the entire panel was that I just want a woman who's not a promiscuous. And people are saying, oh, you're a pedophile, you want a 14-year-old girl. So that's just ridiculous. And that goes to show how far we've digressed as a society, really.
People are stupid when they say that, dude. Like, they say the same to us when we say, yeah, we want a girl 18 to 21. Oh, because I'm 35. Oh, you're a pedo, blah, blah. That is common female shaming tactics, because women don't like it when you acknowledge what their main value is, which is their youth and beauty. So what they do is their knee-jerk reaction is to call you a pedo, to try to shame you into doing that. But, I always tell women, like, I was like, hey, you want a guy that's like short, taller than you, that makes more money than you, more competent than you, right? And they're like, yeah, of course. And I'm like, all right, well, you're short, broke, and stupid. And they'd be like, huh? And I'm like, yeah, that's exactly how you sound when you try to say that we're pedos for wanting women that are younger than us. In other words, we can have standards. Only they can have standards. When we have standards, they call it discrimination. But when they have standards called, it's oh yeah, I know my worth. This is the absolute wild and stupid double standard that women have, because we would never sit there and say, you want a tall Chad that has money, you're a dumb short. We would never say something so ridiculous. We understand innately what women want, and we don't shame them from their wants. But women have no problem with shaming us for our wants, which is ridiculous.
Yeah, and the other thing that you mentioned is on your checklist of things to do before getting married. was be the age of 25, because these are the most formative years for men.
I want them to be 35. And now, if they find a girl when they're
35.
younger, yeah, I want them to be 35. Now, if they find a girl when they're younger, fine. But I think for most men, realistically speaking, they're not going to build their value up to a point where a lot of women are going to respect them until they're roughly around 35. Everybody's different, of course. Some guys become successful faster than others. But in general, most guys don't really have their life together until they're
after the age of 25 for men. And a lot of people say, oh, men age like wine or whatever. It's complete bullshit, right? The age, the aging of men and women, well, men age, linearly, and your looks start to get worse, over time. And women's looks exponentially decrease because of menopause. It's still similar in terms of how you're going to look at 35 for men and women. A lot of men are going to be fully bald at 35. 2/3 of men after the age of 21 have experienced male pattern baldness. So I really don't like that suggestion of waiting until you're 35.
Okay. So I see what you're saying. You're saying that your looks start to downgrade as you age as a guy past 25. So
yeah,
I see that
to a high degree.
I see that argument. But I think this is why it's so important for guys. That's why I'm so big on guys like, taking care of themselves early on, going to the gym, not using drugs, not drinking alcohol. I'm a very big proponent of not smoking weed and doing any types of drugs, staying as natural as you possibly, natural as long as you possibly can, right? Extending that. If you have male pattern baldness, or if you have any of that other stuff, go ahead and get a transplant. Take care of your skin. Keep a good skincare routine. These are all things that could push the clock back. Now, with that said, you are going to have inevitable aging. Fair. You are going to have that. However, that inevitable aging can be offset, right? When it comes to like your looks going down a little bit with your sexual market value, you can offset that by by increasing your sexual market value in other areas. Fortunately for us as men, our looks is not our prime the determinator of whether we have sexual access or not. You're able to make up for it in other ways. So even though your looks might not necessarily be going up or might even be dropping off as you age, you're able to increase your status, increase your income, increase your competency, increase your confidence, increase your many other your charm, your jokes, whatever it is. You become more experienced. So what ends up happening is you're able to refine yourself during this looks degradation phase, where you can offset some of the sexual market value that you lost from your looks declining. And fortunately for us, our looks declining is not as detrimental to our sexual market value as it is for a female. So I think, let's say, I'll give you an example just so I can demonstrate this numerically. Let's say you're 35 years old. When you were 25 years old, you were an 8 out of 10 looks-wise. You were a Chad, nice flowing hair, etc. Now you're 35. Your hair is receded a little bit. You're a little bit older. Maybe you're getting some grays, etc. But you've been able to maintain a majority of your muscular development from going to the gym, staying away from drugs, whatever. But in that 10-year period, you've tripled your income. You've gained more wisdom. You've gained more confidence in the way that you convey yourself. You're far more sure of yourself when you speak to women versus not being so sure. You talk to women in the active voice as the passive voice. These things, though your looks might have dropped off maybe to a 7.5, you've made up for it 10 times more by increasing your status, your income, and your confidence. And that's one of the beauties about being a man, is that if you do the work, you can keep your sexual market value high, even if your looks drop off a little bit.
Well, I would just argue, how much that's actually going to impact your life. I think it's a lot more than you're letting on. But the other thing I'll say is, even if you do triple your income, which is, going to be unrealistic for most people from 25 to 35, tripling your income is not going to offset that disparity in terms of how far you've digressed in your looks, right? Because say you make $100,000 at 25 and you're at the peak of your looks, and then you start making $300,000 with all the decline in age at 35, you're right. So that's why waiting that long is going to be at serious detriment to most people. Not like literally 99% of the people will not in 10 years be able to overcome their aging with status and money. That's just not a realistic thing.
I think most guys, if they do the work between 25 to 35, assuming they have unless their genetics are horrible, they're going to be able to preserve a good amount of that sexual market value in that 10-year span. And I think that would more than make up for some of the lost ground they might have had from their physicality. Because remember, like, if you're let's say I think most women, right, would find a guy, let's say you're an 8, right? You're 25 years old, you make $100,000 a year, you're an 8, right? and you're at the peak of your physical fitness, etc. But you haven't experienced life that much. You're not as confident. You're not as ambitious. You're not as, direct when you talk to women. Some guys obviously have the charisma at that age, but for a lot of other guys, it takes time to be able to build up that confidence. I think that guy that's 25 making $100,000 per year, in good physical shape, let's go 10 years forward for him. And he has a little bit of grays, maybe it's not as, his skin isn't as tight as before, but he's tripled his income and he's able to speak in a far more commanding manner. He's more attractive. He has more experience. He has more cool stories to tell. He's more well-versed, well-traveled. I think that guy will hold majority, if not actually increase his sexual market value over the guy that's 25 that's making 100K versus being 35 making 300K and having all the other benefits that come with, being an older guy. Because women, one of the things they respond to very well is social proof and confidence. And a lot of the times I say competence leads to accomplishments, which then leads to confidence. And when you have real confidence from success, it's very difficult to fake that. And women can, detect that right away. And then you've probably dealt with more women as well. You've had more sexual experience. So girls playing the game or trying to pull wool over your eyes at 35 is not going to go as far as when you were 25. So I think all of these little things that might not necessarily be as tangible come into play and, make you a more attractive mate long term. So I do think that if you do the work, you can stave off that sexual market decline, which is going to come inevitably from aging by the other features that you've attained from your age and hopefully your wisdom.
Yeah, but you are certainly doing the work. Like if you're, tripling your income, that's doing the work. But can you even live in Brickell or any major city like with comfort and access, making $300,000 a year? Like probably not.
I think you can if you keep your costs low and like you're not like, you're a minimalist. This is why another thing I tell guys is be a minimalist. Don't spend a bunch of money on, a leased car. Make sure that you could pay your rent at least 3 to 4 times over. I think if guys like budget their money properly and don't go out for expensive steak dinners and all the other scams, because I think luxury dining, luxury cars, and luxury clothing are all scams. I think if they save their money and they're frugal and they keep a minimalist lifestyle, you can absolutely live in a downtown area of a good city for sure.
Well, so that's essentially all the, novelty of making more money, all the things that actually come with access to more women according to your finances, right? So
sure,
you can't really have it both ways.
That doesn't mean you have to spend it though. You can have that money without necessarily spending it and preserving wealth in that way versus.
Okay, then you lose, the halo that comes with, having increased that income. So that's another thing that you've lost for women. Now you're still at the same place financially, essentially, while on paper, that's not true at all. In their tiny brains, that's, you're at the exact same spot. If you're not doing the steak dinners, if you don't have the luxury car. So that's kind of why I'm just like disagreeing.
Girls can smell when you have, and I'll push back a little bit on this. Women can smell when you're financially competent, you have your money together just by the way that you behave, right? For example, you take her out to eat somewhere. You don't look at the check when it comes. You have a nice apartment in a downtown area. These are all what I call silent indicators of success.
You just said to be frugal. I mean, those are two things that are going against that principle that you've just.
Well, taking a girl to like Moxie's is not the same as like taking her. I'm referring to like taking her like Komodo or one of these other super high end restaurants where they're charging you $1,000 for a steak. That's not needed. You can take her to a mid tier restaurant or take her somewhere for a drink or whatever. And if you have an apartment in a downtown area, when you pay for a drink or whatever, you're not looking at the bill. Like there's silent indicators that you're financially competent that women will pick up on when you're out with them. Paying for the day, etc. Being a leader, saying, hey, we're going to go here, we're going to do this, etc. Having a plan. All these things convey financial competence to a degree. You don't have to outwardly say it.
But now if we're going to Moxie's and, that's not going to overcome the 10% decrease in collagen along with a huge, decrease in testosterone levels, right? So you kind of have to be going to Gecko to overcome that is what I'm saying. But
not necessarily.
You're making... Absolutely. To overcome that, to kind of, reset the balance, you're going to have to be going to Gecko. You're going to have that downtown apartment. And those are both things that are going against the principle of being frugal. To live in a major city, once again, even for 300K, like that's kind of how you have to live. You have to be living, doing the whole Moxie's thing, being super frugal, not having a sports car. You've lost the halo. So it's just like, there's no way to wait until 35.
Well, you don't need a sports car when you live in a downtown metropolitan area. You don't need that because you can walk everywhere, right? So that's one thing a lot of people don't have. Like the guys that live in Manhattan, They don't have a nice sports car, but they live in the area. So the area does a lot of the work for you. Going to Moxie's, right, a mid-tier restaurant, that's good, right? It's still going to be nicer than other places. It's in a good area. Like, again, when you're out on a date with her, right, I think taking her to like a mid-tier spot or whatever and conveying your personality and your confidence and the way that your tonality, all of these little things are things that women pick up on versus you're 25 years old and you take her to maybe your skin, your collagen is a little bit tighter, but you're not really sure of yourself. When you speak to her in what I call the passive voice versus the active voice. Hey, what do you think about this? Blah, blah, blah. You're deferring authority to her. Like, it doesn't matter if you take her to a fancy spot because you're not really 100% sure of yourself versus the other guy who might lose a little bit of sexual market value with the way that he looks and being far more sure of himself.
Yeah, well, it seems like we're getting into semantics, but you know, it's at the end of the day, I just simply wholeheartedly disagree that you will be able to overcome for most people the you know, decline in looks with money, because to do so you have to really like be making so like, even if we, you know, laid out this 300K example to triple your income, that's not something that's realistic for most people. That's not really something that's going to occur. And even once you do, we're arguing with a hypothetical that's not going to benefit you. In the first place.
My argument was that with 300,000, you can live in almost any major city in the United States pretty comfortably as a single guy, assuming that you're not spending money on dumb things. Like I said before, a super nice sports car, luxury dinners every day, you know, or other like expenses that you don't need, high-end fashion. None of this stuff is required. And 300K will go very far in a lot of major cities in the United States, assuming that, you know, you don't spend your money like an idiot. And when I say frugal, I'm not saying don't go out ever or whatever. I'm saying don't spend money on stupid luxuries that aren't really necessary, that don't benefit you to some degree.
No, absolutely. But I'm saying then you're losing the money halo. You're losing everything that you've been working for in terms of simply getting women. Sure, you're better off and you're in a better position. But when it comes to looking for a sexual partner, as stupid as it is, women kind of need to, you know, be seeing that a little bit more.
I think by you living in a downtown metropolitan area that's high cost, like let's say you make 300K and you live in Miami and you're like, oh, I stay in Brickell. She's going to know you're a higher earner off that. Like just by where you live, they'll know right away.
Right. But my point is like, that's not enough of an increase in income to justify, you know, that huge loss in looks. So, and even that increase in income, it's not realistic.
I think the 35-year-old guy that we could put this on paper so it makes more sense. I think the 35-year-old guy that makes $300,000 per year, that's a 7, is going to do a lot better in the sexual marketplace than a guy that's 25 years old making 100K per year, but at 8. I think that guy at the 7 is going to be far more attractive overall to a larger demographic of women than the 25-year-old will be by far.
That's just not what we're seeing according to, you know, all the dating app statistics. It's not what we're seeing according to, you know, self-report studies.
What do you mean by like the dating apps and like the self-report studies?
Because to go from, you know, in terms of like OkCupid, like, you know, dating app, like the top profiles, like that disparity. So, you know, going from a 7 to an 8, you know, that's a huge, you're going from, I think, 1% of the population to like 0.001. So I would definitely disagree that that's, you know, going to be more favorable. You're certainly more rare, you know, adding up your 3 looks, money, status percentiles together, you're more rare as an 8 who's making pretty much no money, even if we were to say you were making no money at all. So I wouldn't even say that, you know, that extra little boost from a 7 to an 8 in terms of looks is going to get you a lot further.
No, I think being a 7, rarity. A 7, 35 with 300K per year. Because remember, there's a bunch of other tangible things that come with that age that make you just simply more attractive to women, right? The natural confidence that you're going to exude, the accomplishments, you're probably going to have a more stable career. You're going to you're just going to be more attractive to majority of women. Now, I'm not saying a 25-year-old can't overcome the sexual market deficiency with making 100K or whatever. But what I am saying is to a larger demographic of women, that 35-year-old guy who's making 300K per year at a 7 is going to be more attractive than a guy that's 25 years old making 100K per year. Because also the other thing you also got to keep in mind, most women prefer to be with a guy somewhere between 7 to 10 years older than them as well. So the 25-year-old is going to lose a lot of women simply by being a bit younger. Now I see what you're saying. Well, 22 after 22 they're useless. Okay, you can make that argument. But I would argue most guys would be okay with a girl, under 30. So I think from that perspective, you have far more options of being you're going to have I think you're going to have a higher sexual market value, and you're going to be far more appealable to a larger demographic of women at 35 years old, 300K per year, at a 7 than 25 years old, 100K per year as an 8.
Yeah, and I think there just might have been some stuff lost in translation there. Obviously, you saw my rating scale was a little bit, brutal. Like when we're talking about a 7, that's like a good looking guy on Instagram. Yeah. Whereas an 8 is, like a Brad Pitt, right? And we're seeing like the difference and that looks level and like what's happening to Brad Pitt, him being a famous actor, making millions of dollars, essentially based on his looks, based on a guy on Instagram who might be doing okay. So that's kind of what I meant. And that's why I would disagree that, that difference is not going to be made up for in looks. But at the end of the day, it doesn't necessarily, matter that much. Because
it's a minute detail, but I do think that
I understand. I now understand what you're saying.
Yeah, I think, in other words, to boil it down, I think being diversified and having a higher sexual market value in the different aspects weighs more than just being extremely attractive in one regard, even within a little bit of a higher income. I think the other things matter a lot more than men want. Because like the thing is, right? How many I'm sure you probably coached a bunch of guys like this. How many Chads do you know that are good looking guys but like freeze up when they're around women and can't talk and have a difficult time conveying themselves? That's gonna kill you, right? That's gonna you up, because if you can't communicate or assert dominance and confidence when you're talking to women, even if you're a very good looking guy, that's going to lower your sexual market value off precipitously versus a guy that might not be as attractive but can speak in a very commanding voice. That guy's going to go pretty far, in the sexual marketplace, assuming he has other things in place as well. Right.
Okay. Yeah, no, the way that I think about it is, and the way that I often describe it is, say you take the 3 metrics that we've been referring to, the LMS, and we increase them all by 20%. What's going to benefit anyone in their life the most is going to be the looks by a huge, huge degree. You know what I mean? In terms of treatment, in terms of job opportunities, and in terms of just, overall success with women, that the looks is going to go the furthest, right? So when we're talking about what to do to improve it, you got to go with the looks. At the end of the day, that's going to make the biggest difference. So I just have a little bit of cause for concern when maybe we decrease the looks by 10%, but increase the income by 50%. I would still argue that, that disparity might not potentially be made up for. But I don't know.
Are we talking at the 7 and 8 level? Because, 7 is obviously well above average. I mean,
I think, we're never going to really fully understand like what that means in each other's head. Just I just think it certainly is a little bit of cause for concern. And maybe for most people, you never know what they're going to be able to actually do with.
I could agree with you if we're talking about like if we're talking about a guy that's like straight up ugly going to average. Obviously, it's going to be more pronounced. But I'm saying like at the highest level, where a guy that's a 7 is very attractive versus a guy that's 8 is even more attractive. I think we start to get into the point of diminishing returns as you increase your sexual market value from a looks only standpoint for men, because our looks simply don't go as far as a woman's looks. Like a woman that's a 7 versus a woman that's an 8. That woman that's an 8 is like heads and shoulders above that woman that's a 7, because women's looks are the only thing that really matter. Versus a guy, you take a guy that's a 7 and a guy that's an 8, but one guy makes 300K, another guy makes like 100K. It's not going to be as pronounced, their sexual market disparity between the 7 and 8, because we're able to make up for in other ways. But as you go down the scale, right, a guy that's like maybe a 5 who's average versus a guy that's like a 4, now we're going to see some really drastic differences at where even income might not be able to overcompensate for that disparity, because you're now at a position where you're so ugly that girls won't even stop to talk to you, so you can even convey your personality. So I think that's why it's so important where guys need to get themselves to what I call like an acceptable sexual market value physically, where women will at least entertain the conversation so that you can convey the pluses you have on the other positives you have according to your sexual market value, whether it's your status, the way that you speak, your body, your physique, your charm, your charisma, etc.
Right. Okay. So, wait till 35 to get married, but what do you recommend that the younger guys between the ages of 18 and 25 actually do to balance, you know, getting the experience with women, but while, you know, realizing that those are the top years for, you know, establishing their career. So how do you kind of justify that?
Yeah, so I'm 35.
What do you recommend?
I'm 35, just so your audience has an idea. And I remember when I was 19, right? So, you know, I think for men, their 20s needs to be like, and I'll say this as well. Like, I never had a serious girlfriend in my 20s. Obviously, I messed around, dealt with some girls here and there, etc. But I never had a serious girlfriend to the point where I'm supporting her, I'm willing to move to the other side of the country for her, any of that stuff. I think that's one of the biggest detriments to young men is having a serious girlfriend in your 20s, because it limits your ability to really take chances, you know, take risks, because this is where you can take these risks, right, and take these chances where if you mess up, you still have time to recover, right? And by having a long-term girlfriend at this point in your life where you want to keep as many doors as open as possible to garner success, you don't want anything holding you back. Also, it's a distraction. I think guys should take their late teens and 20s to really build themselves, learn a trade, get a degree in something that's going to get you a job. This is all, and also be going to the gym as well. Your testosterone is high at this point. You have more free time. Maybe you live with your parents where you can go ahead and have a super heavy protein diet with, you know, having access to good greens and proper nutrition. Like, take that decade, that 12 to 15 years in your late teens all the way up into your 30s where you're just developing yourself and you're trying to make as much money as possible and or getting a skill to make as much money as possible while simultaneously increasing your physical sexual market value as well. And also, you're going to take a bunch of lumps and bruises and take L's, and I think that's going to build quite a bit of character. There's nothing wrong with, you know, putting your hand on the stove once or twice and realize, oh, that burns, because now you learn. So I think in that period of time, that is critical for guys to get their life together and put themselves on a trajectory where they're going to be a higher income earner. Because women, bro, at the end of the day, there's a new turning 18 every single day. Don't waste your 20s chasing after ass. It's literally going to fuck you up.
Okay, well, so when exactly should they go for these 50 bodies? You know, are you saying from like late 20s to 35?
Well, that can be like fourth or fifth on the list, right? You know, you grind hard for 1, 2, 3 months. Now you want to go out for a weekend. That's fine, right? Using dating apps here and there, but it needs to be like towards the lower end of your priority list. You know, and here's the thing, you don't have to necessarily smash the girl to get the same experience. You know, maybe it's you figure out, okay, this pickup line doesn't work when I say this, or women leave me on red a lot or whatever. Like, you can also learn quite a bit from, actually, I would take it a step further. You're going to learn more from your rejections than your acceptances when it comes to females. So you'll be able to refine your technique over this period of time as well and figure out what works for you and what doesn't, because every guy has different strengths and weaknesses that they can, you know, choose to accentuate or not accentuate when it comes to dealing with women. But I do think that, you know, that 10 to 15 years is critical for self-development and getting yourself in a position where you'll be a higher earner.
My only issue is I think for, like, in terms of putting sex on a pedestal, the 50 bodies is amazing. But in terms of experience in navigating relationships, I had sex with a ton of women before, you know, I ever had my first serious relationship. And it taught me almost nothing because I found that the game for getting a one-night stand with a girl, bringing her home from the club, is entirely different than, you know, maintaining frame and, you know, maintaining a good long-term healthy relationship where the respect levels never diminish or anything like that. So you almost, to a degree, have to have that, you know, serious relationship time burden in order to gain experience. I don't really think that that's something that you'll get from just a quick, you know, dating app slay, or maybe you take a girl home on the weekend. Do you agree?
Well, here's the thing. You can have a girl, right, that, you know, you could put her in your rotation, right? We call this plate theory, where you're, you know, having 3 to 5 different girls that you deal with. One girl you might spend more time with than others or whatever. And if you want to elevate her to, you know, girlfriend status, you can do that. My thing is, though, is I just simply want the man to be in a position of power where he's the one vetting the girl. He's the one choosing the girl. He puts her through 6 months to 1 year of a vetting process. And then if you want to go ahead and, you know, elevate her to serious girlfriend or whatever, you can. I just want guys to not, you know, go in with their eyes wide open. And I also, another thing I advocate for is I don't think guys should live with their girlfriends. I think that creates a lot of problems for you down the road when you cohabitate with a female. Because let's be honest, most guys will start to get soft. They'll start to lose their edge. They'll start to become lazier. She'll sit there and say, oh, have ice cream with me. Don't go to the gym, because women are inherently lazy. So I think to keep sharp, Either live by yourself or live with other like-minded sharp guys. And I know a lot of people say, oh, that's gay to live with dudes. No, it's not. If you're living with guys that got their shit together, that are sharp, that push you, it's a fantastic way to live. Or live by yourself if you don't want to have roommates. That's cool too. But the bottom line is you don't want to live with a woman, because once a woman becomes familiar with you, your sexual market value is going to start to drop off significantly to her.
Yeah. And what I'll say to that is, I've had a girl live with me. I've, fully dependent on me, and it was the biggest waste of time. I got nothing done.
Yeah.
And those 5 months, literally nothing at all. But what I will say is it gave me the most experience with women I could ever ask for. And it's in such a short time frame, because, if you're not living with her, you're only seeing her maybe a third of the time. So you're only getting a third of the experience. So I'm very happy coming out of it that now I have all this experience with understanding different dynamics. So there is a light, there is a benefit to doing so. But I would agree with you that it is still more, in your interest to focus on your career and your finances than anything. But let me ask you this. Do you think it's possible to make it work for young guys to have that serious relationship where they maybe potentially live with the girl if it's the right one? Or do you not think that? Of course,
there's always going to be, women that, won't be a problem to cohabitate with. Typically when I dispense this advice, I dispense it from an extremely general sense, because what I'm assuming is, remember, I'm going off like the lowest common denominator. I'm going off of guys that are prone to simp on women, guys that are prone to lose their frame, guys that are prone to become lazy and maybe not be as sharp. Are there exceptions to the rule every single time? Are there women that are, going to be an accent to your life where cohabitating with them will actually make you better? Sure. But I know, unfortunately, with the way the dating marketplace is and the way that women, unfortunately, are brought up in today's day and age, a lot of women are not taught to be an asset to a man. Rather, they're taught to be a liability, right?
Right.
He needs to do this for you. He needs to do that for you. If he doesn't do this, blah, 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 get rid of him. So, like, a lot of women aren't, and it's crazy, too, because, you're 19 years old. I'm 35. I'm sure you got a bunch of young guys watching right now. We all remember what our mom told us. Be a gentleman. Treat women nice. Be polite. Be chivalry is a thing. Hold the door open, etc. Isn't it interesting that young men are taught since the time they're little boys that they need to respect women or whatever? But if you flip it on the other side, little girls aren't taught how to respect boys. Women aren't taught how to treat a man a lot of the times, unless they have a good father and a good mother. But the default setting for a lot of Western women is become successful. You don't need a man. They're assholes, whatever it is. So, like, women are never really taught how to treat a man properly. So this is why so many girls are useless, because they've never been taught how to properly be a woman or a partner to a man and add value. So many women come in saying, what can I get out of this versus what can I provide to this? So that's another reason, too, why I tell guys don't live with a girl and you have to be veteran, et cetera, because a lot of women have these bad habits that, unfortunately, you might have to deprogram out of her.
But let me ask you another question. So, I'm a top percent in, income and earnings, whatever. I'd like to consider myself good looking, but the issue that I often run into is that, with that being said, I don't have the time, because I'm sitting on my computer 16 hours a day, to offer women good experiences, like taking them to other countries.
It just said your connection's lost, by the way, Clav.
Oh yeah. Okay.
On Kick.
So, all right. Yeah. My IRL, I'll check on my IRL run real quick.
Yeah. No worries. Take your time. I don't want them to miss this, because it's a good question.
Yeah. Okay. Let's take a look. Yeah, the ingest is off. Hold on. Yeah, it's just something to do with my IRL run. I'm not sure what happened. Let me.
Yeah, take your time, bro. Fix it. Yeah, no worries. I'm here. This technical difficulty shit pisses me off too. I get it.
Yeah, this has been a good conversation so far, though. Hold on.
Yeah, I'm sure. I hope your guys are liking it.
Let's see. We refresh the. Fix it. Are you live as well?
Yeah, I'm live on Party.
Oh, okay, amazing. So yeah, I don't want my guys to miss this. All right, let's see. Okay, I'm gonna just hit end on OBS real fast.
Yeah, no worries.
Restart it.
I'm here, man. I ain't going nowhere.
All right, stop. Party that. Oh, did you just start up with them?
Yeah. I started streaming with them, I think, last month. So,
okay.
Yeah, I still stream everywhere else, but on weekends.
And they don't have.
Go ahead.
So they don't have censorship or anything?
Nah, it's free. Yeah, you can say whatever you want.
Okay.
That's the wave, man. Like, Twitch and YouTube are gay, bro. Like, they don't honor free speech.
Oh my God,
so, like,
yeah.
a lot of these platforms are like, finally, like, giving the people what they want, where people can say what they want. Why the hell did YouTube ban you, by the way? You don't say anything offensive. What the hell?
Dude, honestly, it's weird. I don't know exactly what happened with YouTube, but I suspect it was because of one of the recent podcasts I went on, because it was a bullshit reason.
What did they say? What was like their official reason?
Like they banned one of my live accounts, and they banned my main account for ban evasion, even though it was made like 2 years before.
What?
So I don't know. I'm gonna get a YouTube rep to see, but I suspect it was some sort of foul play.
That's weird.
Yeah, quite weird. So I have no idea. But let's see. I have no idea why that even happens with my stream, because I'm obviously still talking to you, so I have connection, and my bit rate.
It might be a kick thing.
Yeah, quite honestly.
Probably a kick thing. Because I mean, you've been fine here. You haven't dropped like at all with the lag.
Yeah, I have no idea why that literally must be kick. That has to be kick. If we have to just continue on party, I don't also mind. Until
I'm cool with whatever.
Yeah, well, it's not. Yeah, let's just we can just continue, and when it comes back, it'll come back.
Okay, I can drop, if you want, I can drop the party link for your people real quick in the chat. Let me find it real quick.
Yeah, go for it. Go for it. And I'm sure mine will just come back on.
Okay. I'll tell them link is here.
Yeah, just put it in the chat, and
you can pin it if you want.
Yeah, I'll pin that.
Some idiot says stop bleaching. Dudes are like they
yeah.
I'm like, dude.
I just want my guys to see the conversation.
Like I'll wait until you fix your thing. Like I don't,
Yeah, no, he offered to wait so that's not. I just want people to see, and I don't want to interrupt the flow.
Yeah, people stop bleaching, retards.
I pinned that. Okay, so we're all good. But anyway, let's get that question off until
sure.
the stream comes back. They'll all come in. It's all good. But yeah, so anyway, like personally for me, I'm working 16 hours a day. That's getting me to that top percentile income. But I'm really not able. I don't have the time to offer up those what's it called, those first experiences to girls.
Yeah.
So how do you kind of deal with that?
I mean, you're 19, bro. You got the whole world ahead of you. I mean, I think, for you to try to take a girl seriously now at this point, like, she's only going to hold you back, honestly. I think you should just continue to keep killing it like you are. And when you're ready, right, I think young men should never be under the pressure to find a serious relationship like women are. I think our sexual market value has a far longer shelf life than women do. So I think it's her job to try to find a guy when she's 19 and at her peak of sexual market value. But for you, bro, you're going to just keep going up and up. So I think for you, like, keep doing what you're doing, and I would say stay away from any type of serious relationship now, especially since you're famous and, girls are going to want to go ahead and have ulterior motives when they get with you. We already know that women are opportunistic lovers. I think with someone like you is going to be even more opportunistic. So I think keep doing what you're doing, man, and keep killing it. I don't think any guy, especially 19 years old, should be focusing on these 304s.
Yeah. I mean, but I feel like that's always going to be the case to a degree, that
sure.
Any good experience that a woman likes, taking her out to dinner and doing all this shit, there's never really a position where to be operating at the highest of the highest level, you'll be able to make time for that.
Yeah, I mean,
agree?
yeah. Well, as you make more money and you age a little bit, you can start offsetting some of the stuff, and you can start to buy your time back, right? When you have assets, right, like you whether it be real estate or crypto or something like that, where you're making money in your sleep, and that will be from intelligent investing, as you continue to increase your income, and then hopefully you take that income and put it into assets that make you back passive income. You do that for a period of time, and you'll slowly be able to take your foot off the gas and work less hours if you choose to do so. Some people want to keep their foot on the gas the whole time. That's fine. But you definitely want to put yourself in a position where it's a choice perspective versus you have to work. Okay,
I see. Yeah, so that seems like exactly the way to operate it. Just completely have to lidar women, and if you could find a girl who's perfectly comfortable to you know, not have those experiences, just to sit behind you while you work all day, do you think that's something that's fine?
Oh yeah, that's awesome. You know, I think one of the, like, I think if you can find a girl that like looks up to you and is like your biggest fan, that's the perfect place for your, as a man, where you want your woman to be, where she literally is like your cheerleader. And you know, people are saying, oh, what, you just want to get your ego massage? No, it's because when a woman is your cheerleader and she's your biggest fan, what ends up happening is she perfectly puts herself in the proper dynamics for that relationship to flourish, where she respects everything that you say. She respects your authority. She wants to follow you. She wants to accentuate you. She's sitting behind you, like seeing you work all the time. And she's like, oh, well, I noticed that he doesn't have coffee when he's working and he likes caffeine. Next thing you know, while you're streaming, she's coming over bringing you a coffee, right? Yep. She knows that you like Chipotle, right? She's becoming, what I always say is like, men need to be problem solvers, but women need to be problem solvers too with their guy, where they come in and maybe that guy's operating at 90%. Now she's coming in and helping operate at 91%, 92%, 93%. And when you get to that higher level, every percentile that you go up, me and you both know, is a significant increase once you get closer and closer to the top. So a girl coming in and being an asset like that is the best way to go. And I truly do think for her to be the best asset, she almost has to look at you as like she reveres you. She really respects you. She's like your biggest fan, and she wants you to continue working, and she's there to make your life easier.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. No, I think that's amazing advice.
And I would say if she comes in and she's like, oh, spend more time with me, do this, and she's like taking you off your purpose, that, get her out of there.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of been my biggest thing that I've had issues with is, what do I prioritize? It's not necessarily, you know, is this difficult to figure out, you know, male versus female dynamics that are ideal? Because you can do that, and I figured out how to, but is that even worth my time at this point? But it has to be done at some point in your life. I would just say that we both would agree that's probably, you know, sometime into your late 20s.
And you got momentum, bro. So like for you, like I would say even more so, right? Just to be a bit more tailored for you. Like you got momentum, you got motion right now. Like don't let anybody, any chick come in the way and like, oh no, let's hang out, blah, blah. Like it's like you got the momentum, keep pushing.
It's funny because I know this happens to you a lot, but the OnlyFans leech thing, the girls, man, can I come on a stream? It's like to plug their stupid ass shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the thing that I think about when I'm doing that is, even though we both make them look incredibly stupid, nobody gives, the gooners who are watching don't give a fuck. So we're still to a degree funneling people to OnlyFans, which sucks, but hopefully our viewers are better than that. But I'm sure there's certainly a high degree of them that see a girl come on the panel or come on my stream and think, oh, that girl's hot, I'm gonna buy her subscription.
And the unfortunate reality is, like, you know, are me and you gonna be able to save everybody? No, unfortunately, right? Like some guys are just always gonna be gooners, some guys are always gonna be losers, some guys are just always gonna be perpetual dorks. But, you know, if let's say you get 1,000 extra viewers that come in, you might save 5 or 10 guys. They're like, damn, this just why what's going on? And then they'll wake up right then and there. Because the other thing too that's very important, which I think like it kind of serves a dual purpose, which kind of comes with the territory. When you put these OnlyFans girls on, or these TikTokers or whatever, these women are short form content kings. They make something short or take a picture, right? And they look great. But then when you actually like have her in real time, where she doesn't look as hot, right? She doesn't have the same makeup on, the filters, etc. And then she actually opens her mouth where she doesn't have a script, and people realize how you know, young women are nowadays. They're like, damn, what the f? And it helps knock that woman off the pedestal to a degree. Now, we're not going to save everybody. Some guys are still going to be gooners and f***s, but I do think that one guy that we might save, or there's two guys, or maybe 5 to 10 to 100 guys, 100% worth it for, you know, the sum that will, you know, inevitably still be gooners. Because the problem is that like these simps and suckers, a lot of times they're stuck there. They're never going to change, but we might be able to wake up a couple guys in the process.
It's also natural selection, I feel like, to a degree, for people who are buying, you know, those subscriptions. But let me just tell you guys a little bit of inside scoop. I've hung around with plenty of the OnlyFans models before, and read, you know, through some of the DMs with them, just sitting there laughing at how gay, you know, some of the people in there are.
They're talking to themselves and shit, like they're literally saying good morning every day and shit. Yeah. Yeah,
but it's like, the thing is, like, they're laughing at you, like they know you're a big joke. So you know, keep sending the subscriptions, keep sending donations, but they're sitting there behind the screen, like literally laughing their asses
Actually,
off.
I love that you brought that up, Clav, because this is what guys need to understand. Like when a woman looks down at you as a fan, See, notice how the dynamic when she looks at you as a fan, it works. We don't shun her for that. We respect that. We appreciate that. With women, when you look at her as a fan, what does she do? She shits on you. She makes fun of you. She's showing your DMs to other people. She's ridiculing you. And the reason for that is because with men, right, we have to build our value up. Like we have to get to the gym. We have to, increase our sexual market value, whether through status, the way that we look, etc. So when a woman shows us appreciation, we actually appreciate that shit. If you get a gift from a woman, you're going to keep that. When she writes you a note, you're going to appreciate that because we rarely get that type of love and support from women, right? We have to fight to get that. Women, on the other hand, they get it just for existing, so they don't respect it. And this is why the dynamics always have to be she's your fan and not the other way around because women don't know how to act when they get praise because they've never had to work for it versus we do. So this is why I tell guys, be in that position where she's your fan, not the other way around. These don't, even average guys, right? Maybe a guy that's like a 5 or whatever. A lot of these guys bring more value than some of the most attractive girls. Like men tend to have a very bad habit of underestimating their sexual market value, while women tend to drastically increase their sexual market value, right? Mm-hmm. So I think guys need to approach it from that perspective where she needs to be your fan. And if you're her fan, it's literally what Clav was just telling you guys. She's looking at your DMs. She's laughing at you with the Chad. She's ridiculing you. Then if it gets really bad, women like to play games. Oh, let me tell him to meet me here and just flake on him. They do up shit like that so they can laugh.
Yeah, that's insane. That's crazy. When that happens, it's just, also women to a high degree are evil people. Like they really feel no sympathy for the shit that they're doing. And that's really what you find in these major cities. So where that's what you kind of have to do to be the baller, have the access, like you're just getting the lowest of the low. So it seems like, every single solution that we give or
now, which is good.
Yes. My kick came back up. I have no idea why that keeps happening, guys. It's not even my network. I have no idea. I'll have that figured out for you next time on the stream, but I apologize for that. Anyone who's watching. But yeah, no. So what I'll say is it seems like every time, you go down a thought, there's always a issue at the end of the day. You start talking to chicks, you become high value. You got all these OnlyFans girls coming around. They're evil, they're demonic, this, that, and the other thing. So there's really no good answer for anyone out there. I think we could kind of just take what's our best option, even if it's not the most ideal thing. But really be an individual.
What you just said there, because you said that they're demonic, and I know someone's going to clip that and say that you're a raging misogynist for saying that. But let me add a little bit of credence to that, because I've said this before too. I think men need to understand that, like, when you're an OnlyFans girl, right, or you're a girl that does some type of sex work, whether you're an escort, a sugar baby, OnlyFans, whatever, these women are constantly seeing the dark side of male nature. They're seeing the perverts. They're seeing the weirdos that are fapping to them. They're seeing the degenerate, horrible side of male sexuality. Now, if you flip on the other side, guys that constantly pay for pussy and are always dealing with escorts, what do? They see the dark side of female sexuality. The woman sees him as nothing more than a wallet, and he sees her nothing more than a pussy box. And what ends up happening is you start to build up this natural resentment towards the opposite gender because you're seeing the worst side of their sexuality. This is why I've always been against porn and paying women for sex, because it hurts both parties overall. And with OnlyFans girls, a lot of the reason why they don't have a soul is because they're constantly seeing the worst side of men. And this is why a lot of them have a problem with men. And if you talk to a lot of these OnlyFans girls, they'll tell you in private, I hate men. I hate them. They're so disgusting. Because they're seeing all the weird shit where dudes are sending in videos of them whacking off and all this other weird shit. Which I guess, to be fair here, if we, were an OnlyFans chick for a day, we'd be like, what the f is wrong with these guys? And we'd hate them too. So I think, this is why pornography and prostitution are so pernicious, because it makes the genders hate each other.
Right. And, how, speaking of resentment, how you kind of have to balance to a degree the resentment versus, knowing women that are whores versus not having too much built up rage. So that's kind of a fine line to balance, is what I've found, is keeping your eyes open, realizing that women are promiscuous at the end of the day, realizing they're hypergamous, but you have to still be able to not be a hateful person.
Well, so I would argue, right, because a lot of people will look at someone like me and you and other people that talk about this stuff when we're talking about hypergamy or female nature, dating, whatever. They'll look at us and they'll say, oh, you guys permeate this anti-woman misogynistic rhetoric. But what they don't realize is we're actually helping women, and I'll tell you why. We're telling guys, this is how women are. This is how they behave. Don't hate them for that. Do not hate them for that. This is their natural proclivity. to look for the best guy. Hypergamy is the thing because so many guys go in from what I said before, the idealistic standpoint, like, oh my gosh, you should love me for me. No, wake up and drink the coffee. Women are hypergamous. And we want guys to understand women so they'll never hate them for what they won't be, which is they'll never be an idealistic lover. They're always going to be opportunistic lovers. And the faster you understand that, the faster you make peace with that, the faster you can stop hating women and then date them and deal with them accordingly.
Right. Of course. Yeah, no. So I really like your advice. I really like your input. Did you have any other topics you wanted to go over? That's kind of everything I had written down.
Yeah, no, I'm good, man. I know, are we still down? Because I was,
No, we're still, I came back. I'm live. Yeah, I'm live.
Okay.
So, on Wednesday. Yeah. On Wednesday. Yeah. What did you want to do? Do you want to keep that private?
We could do an episode on, what I was thinking is we do an episode for the guys on Looksmaxxing, and then we do a show with the girls. That's when we normally do the Womanizer Wednesday dating improvement stuff. And then we could do after hours if you're down. If you're not, we could schedule another day.
No, I'm down. Yeah, let's do the full segment.
Yeah,
so that should be like a 5-hour, 6-hour thing.
Yes,
right?
Yeah, because we'll do 2 episodes. So we'll do the first one where we'll talk about Looksmaxxing for the guys, get to the gym, whatever it may be, and then we can do after that we'll do the after hours with the girls. That typically starts like 11 or whatever. So yeah.
I'm curious to see, because you're acknowledging exactly the same things that I'm acknowledging, but will you also support some of like the extreme measures for the extreme society? So maybe plastic surgery, steroids, things like that.
No, we could definitely go into that. So when it comes to, performance enhancing drugs and steroids, I've always been a full natty my entire life. I've never taken, a drug. I'm very anti-drug in that regard. I do understand that some guys want to really maximize and optimize, and obviously TRT and other substances can help with that. But me personally, I've always stayed away from it. But I was an athlete in college and stuff like that, and I used to work for the government. I was in law enforcement. So for me, like drug use was just never an option. And as I got older, I was like, why am I going to do this now? So it just was never a thing for me. But when it comes to doing things like Looksmaxxing, like I had a hair transplant surgery, right? I've been very transparent about that. I think men should do everything that they can to keep their sexual market value from a physicality standpoint high, because like we said before, even if you're a charming guy, even if you got some status, even if you got money, if you don't meet the looks requirement to at least to be able to convey your personality to her, she's not going to talk to you anyway, right? Every girl has a floor of what they're willing to talk to. So I do think when it comes to Looksmaxxing, like guys should absolutely max out their sexual market value as much as they can. And I do truly believe that any guy can get themselves to between a 6 or a 7 in the SMV scale if they do the work.
And so I'm doing, I don't know if you've seen me talking about it. I'm doing a double jaw surgery, which is a massively invasive, osteotomy. Do you think that that's over the top? Do you think that that's too far?
So for me, it would be too far, right? I wouldn't do it, but that does not necessarily mean that I wouldn't agree with someone else, taking it to the furthest. Like I'm a big self-improvement guy. I'm big on self-improvement. I think if you can self-improve in a way that isn't going to damage your long-term health, like for example, what you're saying, like with the double jaw surgery, if it's not going to, hurt you later on, right? I'm not a medical expert or whatever, or put you in a position where you're lowering your life expectancy, I'm for it, man. I think guys, if they want to go ahead and get a nose job, or if they want to go ahead and do a hair transplant, or they want to, remove certain things off their body that would, increase their sexual market value, I don't see anything wrong with that. And I do think that men need to take Looksmaxxing very seriously. And I talk about this all the time, where it's like, you got to get in the gym. That's no choice, right?
Yeah.
Because
I'm really surprised that you are so on board with it, because I think a lot of the same people in the community, whether it be political commentators or, just basic red pill guys, a lot of people will say, oh, that's gay, that's not masculine. But, you're pretty objective with it. You're pretty on board.
Well,
so that's good.
So I'm a little bit older than you, but I come from the Z's era, right? So that's why the Myron Gaines thing was Myron My Gaines is a play on bodybuilding misc, which I'm really showing my age here.
Oh, shit.
But I was I come from the Z's era. So Looksmaxxing, getting in the gym, taking care of yourself, this is something that I've been doing since my 20s. So I've always said you have to increase your sexual market value as high as you can and then get the other stuff in while you can. So yeah, no, dude, I mean, anyone that comes from that era understands, right? Disregard women, acquire aesthetics. These are all sayings that I grew up on. So.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I've had his brother on a few times on our show, Said Sergovich, aka Chess Bra. So that's the era I come from, right? The Jeff Sides, the Z's, you know, Matt Ogus, Legends of Aesthetics. I mean, I know a lot of these guys aren't relevant like that anymore. Chris Jones, you know, big fitness influencers. That's what I like watched when I was growing up. And I was like, damn, like you really do have to increase your sexual market value. And I would argue in today's day and age, in 2025, where Instagram and social media and our interconnectedness is even to a higher level than even back then, visuals matter even more now than even 10 years ago, because we live in a very digital, picturesque world. So there's no way around it. The self-improvement is mandatory now.
Absolutely. I'm going to ask one more good question. I think it might be a little bit, I'm really interested to see if you were a girl, how would you take advantage of the society you're in, and would you do OnlyFans?
You know, this is a funny, so there's two life paths, right? If I just wanted to be a piece of shit and make as much money as possible, right? And be a essentially, obviously the OnlyFans and being a 304 is the way to go, right? But if I wanted to get a husband, right, and I wanted to get married, I think this has never been a better time for women to like be that, how do I say this? Be a dissenter.
Rarity.
Yeah, be the rarity, be the dissenter, because most women are taught, go to school, have fun in your 20s, find the chat at the end of the day when you're 30 years old, and that strategy simply doesn't work. And women are slowly kind of waking up to this, but the majority are still totally blue-pilled on this topic. I think feminism is the blue pill for women. So if a girl is based and understands like, okay, this is the best time ever to like not be a and to be a good girlfriend and lock a guy down, that's powerful if they can figure that out and do it. But unfortunately, we know most women won't, you know, in today's day and age.
Yeah, no, it is so sad. That's the thing. A lot of women would actually be like a lot further if they just did things the right way. Like where we're talking about these, like, you know, potentially like Saudi Arabian princes might marry them based on their looks if they were to stay virgin, where instead of maybe making a few $100,000 off OnlyFans, you got a couple $100 billion. You know what I mean? So they really fuck things
but
up.
like if women like listen to this broadcast, they would learn a lot more from me and you than watching Oprah or Sheryl Sandberg or you know what's those two bimbos names, you know, Call Her Daddy. Like if they listen to our conversation, they're like, damn, this is what men actually want, this is what they think. Because all this other media bullshit like tells women to be and do all this extra shit, and then they're 30 years old and they can't find a guy. They're like, why can't I find a guy? I did everything right. You didn't. You know, you listen to versus listening to men. And that's, I think, one of the biggest problems that women have is, you know, they don't have strong masculine figures to tell them what it is. This is why I like people like Candace Owens, because Candace is at least telling women like, hey, feminism is a lie. This is what you need to be focusing on. This is what you should be doing. And unfortunately, we don't have enough women like that that are popular to kind of go against this narrative of, you know, oh, just live your life and girls just want to have fun.
Yeah. Do you think it's irresponsible for me to be sort of influential because I'm sort of I'm a pretty good communicator, I'd say, at my age and, you know, potentially lack of maturity? I don't necessarily believe that's true, but I've seen a lot of people say that, you know, or is it more based on experiences, would you say?
So what I'll say is this, I think, and I'll show my age once again here. So the fitness era that I grew up in, right? There was a big thing called fake natties, right? Because back then it was extremely frowned upon. I'm talking like 2010 to like 2016, 2017 era, right? Whereas like, I call like the kind of golden fitness era where like fitness YouTubers were huge. It was extremely taboo to ever mention being on gear, using drugs, any of that stuff. I remember people like Boston Lloyd, Rich Piana, they were transparent, they were honest about it. But that was unheard of back then because you would lose sponsorship deals. The big advertisers back then, like Gymshark and some others, you lose your contract. You would no longer be an athlete. So guys stayed away from this. Now, we live in an era where fitness influencers are far more transparent and honest about their background. And I do think that being transparent with your audience goes a lot further than lying to them. And obviously, you do have a lot of young guys that watch you, that look up to you. And I think being honest and transparent about it, but at the same time telling them like, look, this is what I do because I'm being honest and transparent with you, but you guys don't do this shit, which I've seen you plenty of times tell them, don't do this. This is what this is what you're looking at, etc. I do think that that's important because I do think transparency is a very important way to build a connection with your audience. People love the truth, especially when people reveal things about themselves that might not necessarily be held to the highest regard, but it shows authenticity and people like that. So I think what you're doing where you're being transparent, but at the same time telling them, don't do this shit. I'm warning you, like I'm doing it, but you shouldn't be doing it. I think that's a fair play where you're able to balance transparency while also being responsible and giving having a duty to your audience to protect them.
Yeah, it's funny that you say Rich Piana because he's probably one of my biggest influences, and his quote, "Whatever it takes," is arguably my favorite quote of all time. So I really like to live by that principle. I still, watched all his videos when I was growing up, starting all my gym stuff going back. So RIP Rich, man. That guy's truly the GOAT, I think.
Yeah, he was one of the few. He was like the first one, dude, to like talk about that and be honest in an era where it was unheard of. I mean, Michael Hearn is still running around saying that he's natural. Like, bro, all these years later, I'm like, what the people still believe this shit? So, it is definitely refreshing to see more young influencers that are in the fitness niche coming out and being honest, because that was unheard of 10 years ago. And I think as long as you're honest with your audience, like, look, this is what I do, but stay away from it, guys. Like, these are the negatives that can happen, and you're really giving them what can happen if they do go down that road. I think that's very honest. Someone else, like you look at John Skywalker, right? He was a guy that was killing it 10 years ago in the financial space, in the fitness space, but now he's dealing with some very serious consequences, health consequences from what, the gear he was using back then. So,
well, that wasn't necessarily the gear. That was a combination of gear and nicotine, which is, obviously something that causes vasoconstriction. So when you have that increase in blood pressure combined with a lot of rec substances, you really get screwed. Steroids were actually the healthier thing of the things that he was doing with all the rec drugs, all the cocaine. So that's actually the thing that needs to be addressed, is like the fitness influencers who are openly talking about, partying and all that shit, normalizing drinking. Whereas I come along, the steroids certainly aren't the worst thing that's being out there and being pushed, I would say.
Yeah. No, I forgot about that he was using recreational drugs too. Because that's why his feet were swelling up, right?
Yeah. So that happens, combining those things, steroids and rec drugs, you can't do. And I know people in the chat are spamming, you do meth. It's like, I understand it's really not necessarily a healthy thing, but I'm also on, TRT dosages. So, but yeah, no, definitely don't combine rec drugs and steroids, guys. Absolutely not. I would say do one or the other, but then that's, me promoting what drugs or whatever. So I'm just saying, if, one is like, you're absolutely dead set on doing one, definitely don't do the other.
Would you say, because, for me, my position's always been when it comes to this, I tell guys, look, because some guys want to be professional bodybuilders, they want to get their IFBB Pro card, etc. Right? And we all know for you to get an IFBB Pro card, you're going to have to enhance or whatever. What I tell guys is max out being natural, like 5 to 10 years. Well, I'll just give my position real quick and then you can say you disagree or not. I tell them, hey, max out your natural capacity 5 to 10 years. Stay natty as long as you can. Once you've exhausted that and you've learned how to train properly, how to have proper volume, proper nutrition, and you've mastered all of these things from a natural perspective, and you really want that pro card, then I guess you can go into that world. Right, and I kind of just ended there because I don't know anything about gear. I've never used gear. You obviously are far more knowledgeable on this topic than I am. But I've always told them, look, before you do that, guys, please max out your natural limits. Before you do that, learn the rudimentary basics of training, sleep, recovering, etc., and then go from there. But I'll take it from here.
So you're absolutely right that in terms of drug exposure, you don't want to be experiencing that detriment to your health when you don't know how to train, because, shot a surprise for a lot of you guys in the chat, but, good training and good diet is actually going to take you further than steroids will. It's going to. Steroids are sort of the cherry on top, and that's the last thing to come. But I just would disagree with you that it takes 5 years to understand. I think, you could figure out a good training system, proper hypertrophy. There's so much info out there that you could know what you're doing in really like 6 months. So I would say, figure out the training, figure out the diet. And if you're someone who's really smart, it could essentially be figured out in like 1 month. It's just really figuring out like where you are in terms of reps in reserve is the only thing that really takes like a little bit of getting to know yourself. But the rest, you can read all the studies, you can figure out what's optimal, you could do research, and there's really no reason to wait. But 5 years, absolutely not. The only thing is just don't, have any drug exposure until you're getting the most out of the drug exposure from the steroids. So, however long that takes you, once you figure that all out, then you could begin with that.
All right. I mean, I see your perspective. You know, the reason why I said 5 is because I think at that point they'll know their body, they'll understand what type of training they, you know, respond to favorably, whether it's lower reps, higher reps, rest period
Everyone
times.
responds to the same training. There's just like there's a you know.
Well, some people develop faster. Some people are able to develop muscularly faster than others. I mean, some people just have better genetics in general, where they're able to, you know, build muscle faster than others. And you know, it might take time. Like you said, yeah, a higher IQ guy will figure out in months. But let's be honest, most guys, are they going to figure it out that quickly?
All training is going to be the same according to the literature in terms of what's optimal, in terms of like reps in reserve, terms of rep ranges. It's going to be the same across the board. And just because someone progresses faster in the gym, it really doesn't matter. Like that doesn't actually like mean anything. You know, you're just going to progress faster than the other guy would on steroids. You know, so I wouldn't say it matters whatsoever.
Well, we know that volume, right, is obviously the biggest indicator when it comes to muscle hypertrophy, right? The research from Brad Schoenfeld and these guys have shown that volume is by far the most important thing. How you get there is kind of up to you. And you had mentioned like reps in reserve, which goes into RPE and everything else like that.
What do you mean? What do you mean? Like volume in terms of what?
Volume as in like the work, the amount of work that's done. Yeah, sets per week, which, you know, obviously equates to volume. Sets per week, reps, all that other stuff, poundage. Volume is
that's going to be the same across the board. Like what's optimal?
Yes, volume. Volume is the biggest indicator of, and how you break that down is up to you, obviously. But volume is the number one, you know, predicator on what's going to, you know, for hypertrophy reasons.
Well, not really. I mean, training frequency, volume. Like everyone is going to have to train the same across the board. And what's been proven to be optimal is high frequency with low volume training, right?
Yes. So 2 to 3 times a week.
Yeah. So no, more than that. That's not optimal according to the recent literature. So I just don't understand. I have a list of all my references.
Yeah, shoot it to me because I'll actually read through it because I've read a lot of Brad Schoenfeld's work, Eric Helms, all these guys, and you know it was a while ago, so there might be new literature now that I might not be aware of.
Yeah, there's been a lot of recent development, but the way that your training looks is, you know, in terms of when you go into the gym, how many sets are you doing per week? How frequently you train, that is going to be the exact same across. Like no one is going to respond differently to maybe doing 10 sets in one workout versus doing it throughout the week. That's just not how it works. So the only thing that would be different is how much you're actually going to gain in terms of muscle, you know, as a result of that training. But that's going to be the same across the board, which is why if you're gaining a certain amount of muscle, you know, naturally, you know, 2 people are gaining a certain amount of muscle from the exact same training.
Yep.
They're just going to gain more muscle from steroids, whereas one person won't. So I would say that you want to start steroids if you are deciding to go that route, only once you figured out what optimal, you know, is according to the literature. Then you could start. Then that's really only going to be about 1 to 3 months. You know, we can even say 6 months.
With the literature you have, what is it? Because from what I've seen, 2 to 3
just as a principle,
2 to 3 times per week for muscle group.
Yeah. Oh, I thought you meant just total. Okay, that's
2 to 3 times a week. Yeah, that's I'm referring to a paper from Brad Schoenfeld, roughly 2014, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, so
that's what I'm referring to.
Yeah, I thought you meant just like workouts per week. Yeah.
Oh, hell no. No, you could go way more than that.
Okay, you're absolutely correct. Yeah, so no, we're both on the same page. That was just a little bit of miscommunication.
Yeah, no worries.
You know. But yeah, so that's kind of all I had for today.
Yeah, no, I think the people enjoyed it. I think we agree on a lot more than people think. Maybe some nuances here and there when it comes to sexual market value, looks wise versus status and money or whatever. But I think in general, when it comes to fitness or improving your looks and everything else like that, I think we both agree that I think that's in your control 100%. Like no guy should be fat. If you're under 6 foot tall, you better be in the gym. You know, and Looksmaxxing as much as you can when it comes to skincare, your hair, etc. I'm a big fan of, you know, getting as much done. Now, right, if you want to have a nose job or like in your case, a double jaw surgery, you could do that, right, if you want. It really comes down to how far do people want to take it. But me, the only thing that I disagree with is like the drug use. I think guys should stay natty. But I do understand that if you really want to push it to the limit and go to the highest level, yeah, you know, PEDs are going to be the way to do that.
It's so funny because, you know, I wanted to do this as a debate segment, and the whole time I was just looking for things for things to disagree on.
Yeah.
And it seems like we really don't have it. I think Jack Neal wanted us to do a debate segment, and I was like, I really don't know what we would disagree, because we both say the exact same things. You've got to come with the full package, or really don't come with anything at all in this competitive market. You know, so that was pretty funny to see. That's kind of why I had to push back on that one point about aging, is because that was like the really only thing.
Yeah, that's fine. I don't mind.
And we were just arguing semantics at the end of the day. We really weren't too far off with where we were. So that's really
and this
really
happens a lot too with me, because people will hear, like, see one of my clips or whatever, and they'll think, oh man, this guy's really extreme on this topic, and I'm rarely ever to really, you know, go through why I have the worldviews that I have, and you know what I think. And obviously, there's always going to be nuance, right? Dispensing advice to one person might be different for someone else, but in general, you know, people tend to look at that and be like, oh, see, he's extreme, it's for everybody. It's like, no, there's always nuances and stuff like that. But yeah, dude, Looksmaxxing, that's, dude, there's no excuse to be fat or bald or anything else like that when we have all of these things. Hell, even your hair, right? Like, I dye my hair sometimes, right? Where if it turns gray, I don't want too many grays, because I do think that even though some girls might like the silver fox look, I think the more appealable thing is obviously to dye your hair and preserve that youth as much as you can as a guy. And I think we can conceal it better than women, right? Because we don't have makeup and shit. But
do you take hair loss drugs?
What's that?
Hair loss medication like Finasteride?
I used to, but I stopped. I used to take Finasteride, but I stopped because I didn't like it made me irritable. You know, everybody's different, but you know, for me, it made me irritable. When you bust nuts, it's like not as powerful, which I don't give a about that as much, but it made me irritable and like it made me angry very quickly. So I was like, you know what, this might not be a good thing to do. So I stopped using it. But now what I got the hair transplant surgery, and I use the foam, like the hair foam thing, and I put it in like some spots. The topical.
Dutasteride?
Topical.
Or Finasteride? No
Finasteride, just the topical
minoxidil.
Minoxidil, precisely. Yep. Minoxidil.
Well, unfortunately, that doesn't really block any of the mechanisms that actually causes the hair to fall out in the first place. That just helps with, you know, regrowth a little bit and density issues of that nature. So I always tell people, if you're going to get the hair transplant, you know, if you're not stopping the mechanism that made it fall out in the first place, no matter how bad the side effects are, you know, you're just going to have the same issue again in, you know, another couple of years.
Yeah.
So,
no, I mean, yeah, well, I have considered potentially going back and doing a second one. So we'll see. It's not too thin up there yet, but yeah, I you know, if it does thin out again, like, you know, I'll have to go back out there and do it again. But I do think that men should absolutely, you know, use everything in their repertoire to, you know, obviously outside of like things that are too serious, to increase or maintain their SMV, because I think in today's day and age, looks matter more now than ever before, now that we live in an interconnected world where, you know, Instagram, you know, social media, it is a thing. And that's like your business card nowadays too. Like girls, some girls, if you match with the chick on Tinder, you don't have an Instagram profile, she might like just off match you right there thinking you're a weirdo. Like if you don't have a social media profile, a lot of women will look at you like, oh, this guy's weird. What are you hiding?
I know, such a joke. Yeah, because I didn't make an Instagram profile for the longest time in high school, and everyone thought it was like the most autistic thing.
Yeah.
Well, which it kind of was, but it's kind of weird that that's the society we live in. But you know, I always say, don't complain about things. You've just got to play accordingly. So it is what it is. Make the Instagram account, you know, appear neurotypical. You know, it's just what you got to do.
Take professional photos, like, you know, go out, take 1,000 shots, pick the best 5 or 10, wear good clothing. Like professional photos go a long way, man. You know, these bathroom selfies are not going to cut it anymore. It's just not. So.
And Instagram is going to do more for you. I always tell people this all the time than dating apps. Even when before I was famous, and I just had like a normie, you know, 1,000 follower Instagram, that always took me so much further, you know, DMing chicks than matching with girls on Tinder or whatever. So it seriously goes so much further. Tinder is just a video game. I think a lot of the dating apps are purely like for entertainment, purely video games.
100%, dude. Like I've seen girls literally make an Instagram, make a Tinder or Bumble just because they might have got rejected. They feel bad about themselves. They'll do it just to get matched with guys and get messages and like feel appreciated and liked. Like women do dumb shit like that. I do have a guy here that actually has a question for my community. He's saying, Can you ask Clav about stem cell hair therapy?
So I am not, too well versed in that, but what I will tell you is, that's not the most optimal solution. And, that's going to be something that 99% of people cannot afford. So it's just not something that's really worth discussing.
What is
in
it?
terms
Like,
of
is
hair growth.
it different from a regular hair transplant? It's like a whole other game?
Well, that's just like, natural mechanisms to, have regrowth, locally, but whereas a hair transplant, they're kind of implanting hair follicles in a artificial manner. Anything like that, any different therapies would just to circumvent the minoxidil and, dutasteride because they're like pharmaceutical drugs. And that would be something that's a little bit different mechanistically. But not exactly the solution that I would recommend to people.
Gotcha. Okay. And then, I'll ask you a question. What do you think are the inevitable, we don't have to say inevitable. Well, yeah, we could actually, we'll say inevitable. What are the inevitable surgeries that guys are probably going to have to make some point in their life? I know maybe a hair transplant, because you said a lot of guys have male pattern baldness to a degree, but what are some things that most guys are going to have to deal with kind of getting around and or fixing if they're trying to Looksmaxx throughout their lifetime?
So one thing that's increased the largest is people who require orthodontics, right? Because of dental crowding, because people's jaws are shrinking due to poor development and genes worsening and, soft foods being in play. So more and more people are going to require orthodontics and different appliances, even maxillofacial surgeries. A lot of people need it, right? So at this point, you're able to fix dental crowding a lot of the times with braces, but it's going to get to a point where everyone needs their wisdom teeth pulled because everyone's jaw is so small. Everyone needs, double jaw surgery, to fix all these issues. So that's going to happen, progressively, which is unfortunate.
Do you think that's like a modern problem? Because you mentioned like the food is softer. Like, do you think this is like kind of something that happened just thanks to modernity where people have these issues with their orthodontics?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of issues, but it is a modern issue. Yes, absolutely. The fact that like most people are needing their wisdom teeth pulled is an issue, but that is the right decision. A lot of people are against that and they fearmonger getting your wisdom teeth pulled. It's something that you need to have done, but it is an issue at the end of the day. If we're looking at a society that's something that you don't have space in your mouth for. Not good, but
what would you say? Like, when would you say this problem kind of started to become an issue in modernity? 70s, 80s, 90s. Prior to that,
I would say probably when a lot of the food started to change a little bit, and that was a very slow process. Like we had the introduction of seed oils in like the 30s, but I'm really not, I couldn't exactly give you a date. Like food has been changing for really since like since the last 100 years.
Okay.
It's been like
so it's been a kind of a problem that's been slow rolling for the past century.
It's like a soft food issue, as well as, a lot of other weird developmental issues, like, sucking on pacifiers has been another one that's been really bad orthodontically. But it's not necessarily exclusively processed foods. It is a lot of weird breathing habits, and bad airways. And also it's just bad genetics at the end of the day. That's why people in India often are maybe not considered the best aesthetically. It's because of these arranged marriages that aren't allowing the best genes to prevail. So that's also happening when we have, certain weird issues in the dating market of, so stuff like that can kind of throw things off, but that kind of gets balanced out by hypergamy, whereas it really wasn't 50 years ago before the sexual revolution. When you actually have nuclear families, you don't get the best genes a lot of the times. You often need hypergamy sometimes in society to come in and sort of balance out those genetic deficiencies, because you're at the end of the day, you're getting the best genes to kind of come in and pass on those genetics. But, arranged marriages, all that kind of stuff can throw things off.
That's a very interesting perspective because, yes, if you leave women to their own devices, they're typically going to pick the guy that has survival value, height, strength, jawline, high testosterone. These guys might not be the best for long-term provisioning, but these guys are fantastic from a mating perspective. So that's interesting how arranged marriage, because arranged marriages were created to kind of give every guy a fair shot, right? So that they have sexual access, they create nuclear families, more stability, etc. So that's an interesting take on it. And I will say this, we didn't even get to talk about this. Myself, I got like my teeth straightened. I went ahead and, got clear correct or Invisalign, whatever you want to call it, wore that, for years. Well,
working on mine now. Yeah.
Yep. A year and a half. That's another thing I'm glad that we mentioned, because I completely forgot that I did this. I think straightening your teeth and whitening them is like a mandatory. Like I think every guy can have a good smile. And that says a lot about yourself, because having straight, clean teeth also is a status indicator. It's not just an aesthetics indicator. Right. It's also a status indicator, because if your teeth are clean and straight, that means you brush your teeth. What does everyone want to do when they want to go to sleep? Last thing they think about is brushing their teeth. So it also gives you a DHV with cleanliness, with status, with looks. So I think that's another thing every guy should do. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not easily affordable because we're sometimes talking about like $10,000 of orthodontic intervention and like, major cities. Like you go to any orthodontist in Miami, New York City, you're paying $10,000 for orthodontics like a lot of the time. So yeah, it's absurd. And the other thing that I forgot to mention, is the reason that we probably have a lot of bad genes out there is the world wars, right? So we're seriously still recovering from a lot of the different, issues of World War II in the population, because a lot of the people with better genes were getting drafted, getting sent to war. And, this is especially the case in Russia. All of the best genes went off to die, whereas like the incels, the bad genes stayed behind.
Okay.
So that's why Russia as a society doesn't really have a lot of famous male models that are scoring super high on the PSL scale. So that's a very interesting thing. The United States, obviously we didn't have that insane death count that the Soviet Union did, but ours was a more random selection with the randomized draft. Whereas the Soviet Union operated a little bit differently with their conscription. So, leaving behind a lot of people with disabilities. And those were the people who passed on their genes, because the death count was so high, there was no other selectivity.
Shit. No, that's an interesting perspective. Because you would think the guys that are taller, stronger, et cetera, they'd be taken off immediately to go fight on the war or wars. Mm-hmm. That's a very, very interesting perspective. I never thought about that.
Yeah.
Let's see. I'm just trying to make sure I don't have any questions here, because I know guys are starting to ask me questions here as far as like.
Okay, yeah, whatever questions your chat wants to ask.
Is female nature being weaponized? No. There was another guy. Okay, so they said the stem cell hair therapy. Oh, there we go. What are the most important micronutrients for maintaining and even regrowing hair? This comes from one of my guys, Bluffkin.
So in terms of micronutrients, that's going to be your folate, your B vitamins are going to be the most important. But at the end of the day, if you're dealing with hair loss, micronutrients are not going to be enough to, counteract some of the androgens that are, binding to your hair follicles and, causing these issues. So, while micronutrients are important for, all areas of health, that's just not something that you could fix and take supplements that are over the counter and stop, dihydrotestosterone being a strong androgen from coming in and causing that androgenic alopecia. It's just not how it works,
So that's more of, I would say, maybe an accessory. Like, let's say you do the hair transplant, you're taking the Finasteride, you're doing the hair foam. Then if you want to throw in some vitamin B on the side, that might help, but you have to deal with the bigger problem. No. So it wouldn't even help with that.
Yeah, honestly not. No. Okay. So it would help technically on paper. Like we could show maybe an increase in nutrients and blood flow or something of this nature, but it's not going to be enough to counteract the DHT and other androgens binding. What I'm simply saying is the pharmaceuticals are good enough that even if you had zero micronutrients, you're going to be able to reverse the hair loss to a slight degree with minoxidil and stop any further recession with Dutasteride. But that's not me saying don't eat micronutrients. That's not what I'm saying.
What I'm saying is like, no, I'm saying assuming you do the pharmaceutical stuff, the hair transplant, the finasteride, the minoxidil, then you add in the vitamin B supplementation. At that point, will it have a more potent effect? That's what I'm asking. Like, assuming you do the hard stuff first, then you add that in.
I mean, to a negligible degree,
okay.
You know, but yeah, I mean, it's just worth it for other reasons, but it'll help you extremely marginally.
Okay, fair. Like the pharmaceutical stuff, like we discussed, you know, the hair transplant, the more invasive stuff is going to do the 90% of the work.
Yeah, and people often call me a shill for talking about this, and then they'll point out some study where it's like folate might have increased, you know, this by this percentage or whatever, and this is actually going to help with your hair loss. But there's a lot of difference between like in vivo and in vitro when it comes to looking at literature. But guys, science is so much further than it was, you know, in the 1800s or in the
even 5 years ago. Like 5 years ago, we have stuff now that we didn't have before.
Well, the reason I say that the 1800s is people will point to like, you know, what people look like 200 years ago or whatever, or before seed oils, and you know, attribute it to like changes in diet, and say like, or science is the problem, because obviously seed oils would be like a manufactured thing, but it's just simply not true. You know, pharmaceuticals are amazing. Or the other reason that they're fear mongering, you know, a lot of pharmaceutical intervention is because there's a lot of distrust in the mainstream media as an institution. So they apply that same, which is justified, obviously, that's justified, but that doesn't mean it should just be applied to, you know, the institution of science, right? Because there really hasn't been more than one instance as of recently where there's been, you know, deception and lying in terms of, you know, different clinical trials. Because when we're talking about a meta-analysis, obviously that's something that really can't be coordinated on a mass scale. You know, so that's kind of how it works.
Right. No, that's interesting stuff. And we'll definitely go into more detail on Wednesday with this, where we can like really talk about top 10 things guys need to focus on when they Looksmaxx or whatever. And we can definitely have that discussion and have some girls on. It'll be good. So this Wednesday, and then obviously if anything changes, just text me. You got my number. And we'll work it out, because you're not too far from Miami. So
no, just right outside. It's honestly perfect, you know.
Awesome. Yeah, you're close enough where you don't got to deal with the bullshit, but far away enough, you know what I mean? So close enough where you can come in, but far away enough you don't got to deal with the bullshit. So cool. No, man, it was a good discussion. I enjoyed it. You know, I think we were able to find more common ground than different ground. We could disagree on some minor nuanced things or whatever based on our age differences or whatever. But I think in general, I think a lot of your guys were able to get some value from it, and vice versa. And yeah.
Hopefully. Hopefully this was, you know, very beneficial for all the viewers. I think it was.
Yeah.
You know,
no, for sure. Because I know you have a lot of young guys that watch you. So, no, man, that's great. Cool. I'll see you on Wednesday, bro.
Okay. Take care of yourself, Myron. Thanks for coming on. Man.